Silently, those gates appeared, on a street corner, on the beaches, as well as in dark places where no one dared to go. Although they looked like gates, they never opened, could not be broken, could not be moved. Their true nature only became clear several years later. After so much time, the gates were opened. From them, countless monsters emerged and attacked the people around. The skies and the earth were painted crimson amid screams and shouts. That was when the trumpets sounded and they descended from the skies. Cold and distant, they looked at humans with disdain. Those winged beings pursued only humans with their wings. Fleeing from these beings, a little girl worried about her older brother. He protected her from the fire despite his wounds. It's okay, Ayumi, I'm here." That was when the boy heard some footsteps. Before he realized it, a monster had appeared behind him. Thinking of protecting his sister Ayumi, the young man lost his strength. Ayumi was surprised and worried about her brother. "Big brother, wait, don't go. Please, I will be good from now on, so please." While Ayumi pleaded to the heavens, a golden glow appeared, enveloping her as well as her brother. The glow became strong enough to blind the monster that was trying to attack them. Transforming into energy, the light overflowed from the two, consuming everything around, including the monster. Ayumi cried desperately, strengthening that power even more. "Don't take my brother." The golden light exploded, consuming everything in a wide area, blinding everything around. Weakly, Ayumi's brother could see that light until his eyes closed. Since the opening of those gates, no explanation was given. Dark monsters appeared and devastated cities. Beings that seemed like deities did the same. Only one thing was said to humans by the leader of the winged. Among the 7 envoys, I am the first. Sometime later, Ayumi's brother woke up in a hospital bed. When he got up, he realized he felt no pain at all. Moreover, his wounds had disappeared. The first doctor who came to check on him revealed why. "Thanks to the awakening, your life was saved." She also explained what had happened while he was unconscious. The awakenings began when the gates opened. 24% of the population suddenly received abilities. They became awakened. At a great cost, humanity survived the first calamity. Upon learning that her brother had woken up, Ayumi ran through the hospital. According to the doctor, the one who had saved his life was Ayumi herself. With a rare talent in healing and purification, she awakened with a light attribute. Holding her brother, Ayumi cried with happiness. "I'm so glad you're alive." On the city streets, many people walked looking down at the cell phones in their hands. On one of them, a streamer could be seen. An enthusiastic girl greeted her audience. "Right here next to me is Ayumin." Akagi Ayumi, a 16-year-old hunter, was in front of a gate for another raid. It had been 10 years since the catastrophe, and the world had changed completely. After the disaster, dungeons began to appear everywhere. These dungeons became known as gates. To prepare for the second arrival of the envoys, hunters began exploring and clearing the portals, which increased in number every day. Thus, hunters gained prominence. In the face of an era of despair and injustice, humanity did not hide. The hunters went to battle and exterminated every gate they attacked. Quickly, raids became a popular phenomenon. Now many awakened people dived into the portals with cameras on. Ayumin was one of those streamers. "What will today's raid be? It will be a new challenge. My senior hunter, Manasi Reika, told me I'm ready. It's time to solo a rank B gate." Although Reika was not very popular, Ayumin's stream viewers supported her because they knew she would do her best to meet everyone's expectations. While managing the chat, Ayumin got annoyed. "Guys, you know the rules. Don't comment things that might hurt, or I'll block you without hesitation." Returning to the main topic, the lively Ayumin was ready to go. Let's go. With her rare light attribute, captivating appearance, and sincere and cheerful personality, Ayumin became a success. It had been a year since she started streaming, wanting to become independent. Now, her older brother watched Ayumi become a rising rookie and one of the most famous streamers. Akagi Enma, the older brother, helped her between his jobs as cameraman and chat moderator. Thinking of Minase Reika, Enma always felt grateful that his sister had a senior who supported her. However, looking at the chat, he didn't understand why so many people cursed her. In a dark room, someone watched Ayumin's stream. If someone could see who was sitting in front of the monitor, they would realize it was Minase Reika. The blue-haired girl with shoulder-length hair gritted her teeth, frustrated and sad that everyone was speaking badly of her. Ayumin entered the dungeon and confronted the monsters with her power. Intermediate light attribute technique. Lightning fall. Even in the closed cave, lightning struck the monster, which dissipated into light. In her first attempt to solo a rank B dungeon, Ayumin faced difficulties despite her effort, but everyone supported her to succeed. Ayumin walked to another fork in the cave, where several goblins and slimes appeared. This time she used an advanced light attribute technique, Stella's Harvest. A magical light symbol appeared before her, and a golden scythe was summoned. The people watching her stream worried because they knew light abilities quickly drained the user's mana. Enma, while watching his sisters fight, had already lost count of how many times he wished he had awakened too. However, his thoughts changed when he saw his sister's confident smile looking at him. "Don't worry, I won't lose." Swinging the golden scythe, Ayumin used the skill Angelic Wave, Waves of the Sky. As she floated with the energy of light, her scythe released numerous golden feathers that completely covered the hallway of the lair. Panting, Ayumin celebrated the victory with the chat, "We nailed it." Everyone was amazed and celebrated with her. Although it had been tight, Enma could see that the tips given by Reika had been worth it. Still, he couldn't understand why people were saying so many bad things about Reika. While Ayumin took a break, someone in the stream commented that it seemed there was someone else in the dungeon. Watching the broadcast, Reika smiled maliciously. "This is your punishment for making Reika-sama be despised." Ayumin was startled to realize there really were others in the dungeon. Enma didn't see them in time as they appeared behind him. When he turned around, it was already too late. He fell after the attack he suffered, dropping the phone. The men who had invaded the dungeon soon walked toward Ayumin. With malicious looks, they prepared themselves. A blonde man with long hair, who seemed to be the leader of the group, created a magic circle with an advanced blood attribute technique, strengthening his arm. "They said to punish her for being arrogant, but I'll avoid her face. It won't be fun if such beauty is ruined." Ayumin gritted her teeth upon seeing the group's actions. "I don't know what you want, but clearly it's not to talk." The man who had strengthened his arm liked Ayumin's attitude. Even without mana, she still despised them. With the little energy left, Ayumin used a basic light attribute technique. However, the counterattack was brutal. Soon, she fell to the ground, being mocked by the two henchmen. As the blonde man and his masked subordinates approached to finish her off, Ayumin looked at her older brother, tears streaming down her face. Then, she no longer moved. Faced with this, the leader of the invaders ordered everything to be cleaned up. The two accomplices obeyed immediately, as they still had to take care of business. Wanting to be quick, they planned to throw the siblings to the monsters. As soon as they agreed on the plan, a giant worm appeared. For the bandits, it was the perfect moment. One of them put Ayumin's body on his shoulder, wanting to start with her. At that moment, flames ran along the dungeon walls. The bandits looked toward the source of the fire and were surprised. They didn't understand what was happening. Those flames, which surrounded Ayumin's older brother, had defeated the giant worm monster. The pair of henchmen were frightened. Wait, the brother was supposed to be useless, that's what they said. But what is this fire?" The flames surrounded the young man fallen on the ground, who weakly called his sister's name. Quickly, the bandits realized that fire was the sign of an awakening. The flames spread, beginning to consume the phone that was streaming, as well as everything else. Shortly before, upon seeing his sister fallen, Enma tried to move. However, his body did not respond. He had sworn to protect Ayumi, and it was at that moment that flames arose in his mind, accompanied by a voice. "If you want power, be furious. Let this fury burn. Burn your entire being." With effort, Enma raised his face and managed to see the phone screen, only to witness his sister's desperate gaze and tears. That image made him even angrier, consumed by the flames of rage. The two masked men watched in disbelief as the worm was completely incinerated. They couldn't believe that Ayumi's brother, the one who was supposed to be useless, was causing that. Even without moving, the flames surrounding Enma darkened the dungeon with their red and golden hues. Trying to stay calm, the two remembered that the young man was severely injured. One of them then used an intermediate stone attribute skill, Rock Explosion. However, the flames intensified, destroying the rocks before they could hit the target. Surprised, the masked man realized his attack had failed. Enma, now standing, felt a tremendous heat. His whole body and mind were aflame, but his eyes burned with fury. Frightened, one of the bandits asked the other if they should call back their leader, Sakura, but the second refused, fearing the consequences. The one who hesitated quickly met his end, burned by the hands of the one who now controlled the flames. The survivor immediately tried to flee. Using an air enhancement, he accelerated his speed to escape. Meanwhile, Enma crawled on the ground, trying to reach Ayumi's body. Throughout their lives, they had only each other. Now, even if he handed the culprits over to the police, it wouldn't bring his sister back. He could still remember her smile, which, even amid the pain endured in the dungeons, always wanted to make others smile too. That was Ayumi's motto, and Enma knew it well. Facing the last desperate look still present in his sister's eyes, Enma closed them with his hand. That kind of look, you wouldn't want anyone else to see it. Goodbye, Ayumi. Then he ignited all the remaining flames, bidding farewell to his sister forever. After this farewell, Enma awakened in a dark world. Looking around, he saw a completely burned and destroyed landscape. Not knowing where he was, he wondered what had happened. Then he heard a voice. "Hey, you've arrived." Turning toward the voice, Enma saw a skeletal creature with wings of fallen feathers. Thinking he had gone to the underworld for having attacked someone, Enma asked that entity if at least his sister had gone to heaven. The creature laughed at the question. Don't be stupid. The end of humans is to become ashes, that's all. With white hair and horns, the being introduced itself. I am Vox, and this is the world I created. And you're still alive. Faced with so many revelations, Enma was confused. After a moment of thought, Vox continued. You've heard of those sent from the heavens, right? I am their enemy. That's basically what you need to know. Since I hate long explanations, I'll get straight to the point. I want you to make a contract with me. Enma became even more confused hearing about a sudden contract. Laughing, Vox created flames with his power. Didn't you just feel them? My flames? This is a power too great for any human. You can become an entity or even a deity with it, and I will give it to you. In exchange, before hearing what Vox wanted, Enma refused, telling him not to make decisions on his own. A look of sadness appeared on Enma's face. Even if I gain this power now, there's nothing I want to do with it. Vox couldn't contain his laughter, surprising Enma. Don't lie to me. If you really had no such desire, then what was that violent fire? He clearly remembered the flames Enma had summoned, the tears he shed, the fire of rage. Accept your fury and make it your power. It was your fury that awakened me. If you join me, that fury will be your strength. Surrounded by the flames of that power, Enma at least questioned Vox about the reason behind that contract. Extending his broken wings, Vox smiled maniacally. Because I want to devour your despair. Make a contract with me and offer me every drop of despair. That's what I survive on. There's someone you also want to sink into despair, isn't there? Be honest with yourself, Akagi Enma. Consumed by the flames, Enma howled. He wondered what he would gain by taking revenge on those who had done this. Was there any purpose in it? However, he forgot that sometimes no reason is necessary. The only thing he needed was his sister's smile, and having lost it, a void formed in its place. That void became the reason that led him to seal the contract with Vox. I'm tired of stalling. Teach me how to use this power, Vox. Vox became excited seeing Enma's empty gaze. In that world he himself had created, Enma would live forever. He wouldn't need to eat or sleep. There, monsters created by Vox would serve as targets. Now Enma could use his power freely until he fully mastered the flames. Enma, this power is yours now. Flames formed in Enma's hands and he advanced, consumed by hatred. With every strike, the flames spread violently in all directions. Consumed by hatred and despair, he continued to fight, pouring all the weight of his feelings into the flames. Facing one of the monsters, he stopped. In the creature's gaze, he saw the scoundrel who had attacked his sister. The hatred inflamed the following attack even more, burning the monster with overwhelming heat. Vox, watching as Enma destroyed his puppets, felt satisfied. After the end of the training, Vox sighed. I said you could use this place as much as you wanted, but who would have thought you'd keep setting everything on fire for a whole year? Looking at Enma, he mocked. A pyromaniac or an arsonist? That's the question. Human fury only lasts 6 seconds because it's a fleeting emotion. So, after 30 million seconds, how do you feel? At the top of a mountain, Enma extended his hand, touching the ashes still falling. His melancholic gaze revealed something even Vox did not expect. What burned inside him was no longer hatred. Facing that look, Vox understood. Silently, he released his flames as a rite of passage. Go ahead, contracted one. In a dungeon with the appearance of a dark cave, a mocking voice echoed. Oh, still trying hard? Why are you trying so much? A couple, who had already lost a companion, faced a group of attackers. With a malicious look, the hunter attacking them conjured magic that strengthened his fist. He counted down before finishing off the young man in front of him. Desperate, the girl tried to wake her friend. The man stepped on the one he had just eliminated, laughing. If we don't conquer the gate, is the world doomed? You're weak and too serious. It's hilarious. I still haven't learned anything since the Ayumi incident. A year ago. With the same cruel look, he turned to a rookie beside him. The young man hesitated. He remembered what he had done a year ago, and how because of that, he had been fired. At that moment, a broadcast started. A person appeared on the phone screen, showing their own face. Hello, right now I'm at a certain gate. With a cold and malicious gaze, Enma began his stream. As soon as Enma started the broadcast, even using a drone, that man and his companions surrounded him. Ugh, streamers are really a pain. Sometimes you end up in the wrong place at the wrong time and get caught on a live stream. Furious, the man with the heavy expression ordered Enma to turn off the camera, but Enma just smiled. Flames appeared, engulfing the man who, before the eyes of his companions, began to disappear. While creating and displaying the flames, Enma introduced himself. I'm new to streaming, so nice to meet you all. As the live audience wondered what was happening, those present at the scene, overwhelmed by the heat and fear of the flames, stepped back, including the young newcomer. Then Enma pointed to the man in flames and revealed, his real name is Keisuke Sugino. 28 years old, unemployed, and his crime? He was the one who attacked streamer Ayumi a year ago. The people watching the broadcast were shocked. Many were longtime followers of Ayumi, but they were confused. They thought the culprits had already been caught. While they questioned this, they saw the flames consume Keisuke Sugino. Quickly, users pulled up old videos and compared Ayumi's last recording with Keisuke's appearance. Even with the mask he wore then, they recognized those eyes. While Enma streamed, the two henchmen accompanying Keisuke surrounded him. With one companion already eliminated, they decided to attack him for good. But before they could move, Enma turned to the camera. These two are no better than him. Each has committed their own crimes. They used the privilege of being hunters to hide in the shadows of the portals and avoid capture. So I ask you, what should happen to trash like these? The people in the stream agreed with him. They wanted justice or revenge. One of the men raised his hand, activating his power that ran through his arm. But before he could attack, flaming eyes stared him down. Let your sins be burned. In an instant, the two thugs were destroyed by Enma's attacks, leaving only Keisuke intact. The flames still persisted, and the camera remained on, letting the sounds of crackling and agony echo through the broadcast. Enma then pointed the camera directly at Keisuke, while the viewers, stunned by what they had witnessed, demanded he be punished. Answering the request, Enma extended his arm. In an instant, the flames surrounding him surged, causing excitement in the stream. Addressing Keisuke, Enma asked, "Any last words?" Before thousands of viewers whose opinions were divided, Keisuke begged for forgiveness. He repeated over and over, desperately, that he was sorry, but it was too late. Then a comment appeared on the screen. He apologized. Can't we just forgive him? Reading that, Enma replied directly to the user named Toktosu. How about next time I do the same to your parents? If I apologize afterward, will that be okay? Isn't that what you said? The people in the broadcast began to get scared by Enma's tone. Do you think you're safe just because you're sitting there watching? Anonymity nowadays? What a joke. The audience's attitude changed. With Enma's comments, now everyone was against him, but Vox was on his side. That's right. By feeding on my despair, you made a pact. That hatred you feel isn't limited to just you. All the bad feelings around you will become your power. Enma was using the fury of the people in the stream to his advantage, following Vox's words. The more you go viral, the stronger you become. Enma continued showing Keisuke, who couldn't extinguish those flames with his tears. Faced with such a scene, Vox laughed, wanting to go after the guy's parents, although Enma didn't want to go that far. To feed Vox with such despair, the prey Enma chose were obvious. He would go after all those who caused harm without restraint, as if they owned this world. Vox, I will feed you with their despair until you are satisfied. Enma's words cheered the dark being watching Keisuke. Because sudden despair was always the most delicious. The despair of arrogant scum must be extraordinary, just like this guy's. Find those who harmed Ayumi. Only despair suits them. After some time, Enma smiled at the camera, asking for some time to ask Keisuke a few things. Trying to survive, Keisuke begged, I'll do anything. Help me. Enma wanted to know the name of their leader, that big guy. He wanted to know everything. Faced with the questioning, Keisuke cried even more. He refused to tell. If he did, it would be the end for him. Desperate, Keisuke used his wind magic. Basic wind attribute technique, Kamitachi. The power created by Keisuke generated wind waves that completely filled the cave's chamber. On the camera, one could see the man desperately trying an attack with his last energies. Raising his hands, he accumulated a large amount of wind power. His strongest technique, intermediate wind attribute technique, Sylph Sphere. He wouldn't have Enma, not as much as that person. With all his courage, he threw the sphere at the protagonist. With the sphere crossing the entire camera and exploding, he wondered if he had succeeded. He wouldn't believe it if his target was still alive, but when he saw what was ahead, he couldn't believe his eyes. Before him, Enma taunted, a harmless breeze at most will stir the flames. The people watching were amazed to see the flame rise even more powerful than before. Keisuke tried to retreat, but he had nowhere to go. Then Enma approached, explaining the difference between common flames and his flames. These burned from the feet all the way to the heart. The smile he showed was maniacally frightening. Even so, these flames will keep you alive. Imposing fear, Enma ordered him to say what kind of abilities that person had, but Keisuke kept denying, I don't know. I'm sorry, please. That guy's dangerous. The protagonist wondered who that guy was to inspire so much fear in this man. Since he couldn't extract anything important, Enma made a proposal. Then just tell me the name. If you tell me, I'll put out the flames. How about that? Faced with the man so afraid and crying so much, Enma tried to pretend to be friendly. You must be suffering, right? Crying so much, he decided to give the information, Kurokami Yaichi. Enma stored that name in his core. That was the name of Ayumi's enemy. Finally, he remembered the viewers, and taking the phone again, thanked them for waiting. Since he understood, I'll keep my promise. Keisuke felt more relieved with Enma's words, but not when he saw what he would do. Enma simply left him behind while talking to the people in the stream. "We can always solve this by talking, right? We're human. I finished my business here, let's end the stream now." Desperate, Keisuke tried to get the protagonist's attention to show that the flames had not been put out, but Enma just gave him a simple look. "I'll leave them burning. Someone like you, a humble subordinate, probably doesn't know much anyway. Finding out the name is enough. While you savor the pain and suffering you inflicted on Ayumi and the others, please let the flames burn slowly." Desperate, Keisuke screamed, begged, but didn't see the flames go out. He had caused this to himself. Vox appeared to feed on this despair. The entity smiled miserably, savoring such feelings. Leaving Vox with his meal behind, now Enma had identified his target, Kurokami Yaichi plus another person, the one who had ordered the attack on Ayumi. Although he had few clues, Enma swore he wouldn't let them escape. In a room in front of a computer, the one who had ordered the attack on Ayumi watched a stream. She clenched her teeth furiously. She was the person Enma had sworn to find. Her and the others would turn to ashes because of him. In a classroom, a young woman asked her friend if she had heard rumors about Enki, the flame entity. Since her friend seemed unaware, she excitedly told her, "He hides behind those who do bad things. Then he appears and turns them to ashes." She was talking about none other than Enma. In a dungeon cave, two teammates found themselves in a worrying situation. Before them, their friend had been captured by a man with an arm transformed into a sharp crystal. "Don't move! Are you okay with this girl's fate?" Seeing how their friend Sina was in danger, a man wearing a beanie shouted desperately for her. The man who had captured Sina had few demands. "Leave all your items and magic stones." At that moment, someone streaming appeared. His audience was already asking what they would see. As he appeared, the streamer revealed the identity of the man holding the girl. Shikihara Goro, 29 years old, male, unemployed, and a rank E hunter. He has extorted at least 20 hunters. Although he never finished off another hunter, 3 of them ended up suffering at the hands of monsters after having their equipment stolen. Before the man who created flames with his own hands, Goro was surprised. "Who are you? Stop filming!" The broadcast, which had once been against Enma, was now on his side, against those he accused. Goro, desperate, stammered, "Don't come closer." It was then that Enma smiled at that woman. Ayase Yano, 21 years old, female, part-time worker, rank D hunter. She pretends to be a beginner and infiltrates groups to be caught by Shikihara Goro. The group that had been with Ayase before was incredulous. Enma finished his accusation. "She is an accomplice of Shikihara." No. When he realized he had caused someone's end, he tried to surrender but was forced to continue as an accomplice and become the main offender. The broadcast was shocked to discover that the girl, under that man's claws, was actually the mastermind behind the act. Being discovered, Ayase became furious. "Hey, you invaded my privacy." Furious, she attacked Enma, creating a weak energy in her fist. Ayase's attack hit the ground, creating a shockwave that destroyed the entire floor in a straight line. The girl's ex-companion, who thought her name was Sina, was shocked. Faced with proof he was right, the protagonist smiled. "What should we do with people like that?" Ayase was furious, even in front of the cameras. "Hey, why are you dodging?" Enma would no longer drag the situation when they brought it upon themselves. Ayase, however, would not give in. Her fists, turned to stone, punched the air, creating stone fists that were thrown at him. But Enma dodged those attacks as if they were nothing. He even mocked her, showing he knew everything about her. "I also love burgers, you know? Those grilled on a hot plate." Extending his hand to create a flame, Enma was ready to make burgers out of them. Hit by the magic, despair arose in Ayase. Her ex-companion, wearing a beanie, tried to save her, but his bald friend held him back. "Wake up, we need to escape." That bald man, seeing what Enma had done, immediately guessed he must be the one from the rumors. Surrounded by his flames, Enma walked toward Ayase. With a vacant look, he said goodbye. "Let your sins burn. You owe a debt to those 3 who are gone." Goro, who had seen the whole scene, sat on the ground, unable to believe what he was seeing. The protagonist approached him too. "Shikihara Goro, you have a duty to fulfill for what you did. You can surrender or find the same path as Ayase. You choose." Crying, he shouted that he would surrender. But then someone in the broadcast asked if Enma had any proof. Faced with that question, Enma laughed. "Proof? Well, do you need proof to throw out trash, idiot?" The broadcast began to turn against Enma. They wanted him to go to the authorities if he had proof. They wanted to take down his stream. Faced with so many annoying people, Enma just ignored them. Left behind, Goro thanked him from the bottom of his heart. Actually, Shikihara Goro himself had contacted Enma asking for help, wanting to hand over the evidence. Before leaving, Enma wanted to ask Shikihara something. "By any chance, do you know anything about Ayumi's case?" Today, Vox was complaining. "How boring!" Surrounding the protagonist, he complained about how little despair he had been given, even though that woman's wasn't so bad. Vox wanted at least to have caught that woman by surprise, so he could collect better despair. But Enma reprimanded him. That's my power. I'll use it the way I want. Vox couldn't help but smile. Scary madman. The Lord Entity Vox? Little by little, Enma was beginning to understand him as he used his powers. The more Enma used the flames, the more he himself grew. To be more precise, the angrier the viewers got through the comments, the hotter the flames became. That anger could be directed at him, against those he hunted, or against those careless victims. The anger could be about anything. People could be angry remembering their bosses or directing their anger at customers. Although each source of hate was small, the large volume made things significant. Even the hate of those who had been at rock bottom among the trash served. For Enma, gathering viewers who wanted to vent was the crucial factor. After all, the internet was where such people vented their rage. While watching the protagonist, Vox wondered what he was thinking. Vox remembered he had created something whose name he didn't know. Enma explained he had created a pilogram, a dedicated app that allowed anonymous information exchange. Vox, who didn't understand much about technology, only understood that in it people could send random messages. Enma revealed he had only created it so information would spread faster. Everywhere they said only the flame solved everything. Some even disguised themselves trying to pretend to be that person. One of the reasons Enma created that app was precisely to prevent false contacts. Vox didn't care about the methods. He wanted to know if Enma would be able to find those he sought, those who had attacked Ayumi. A year ago, Kurakami Yaichi had been exposed on camera, and yet he hadn't been caught. Enma didn't think he was someone who could be found randomly, so he had decided to lure him. On the app, comments about the Flame Man spread, repeating his catchphrases. That was Enma's plan, to make those words spread until news of his presence reached Kurakami Yaichi's ears. While looking at the messages, something caught the protagonist's attention. He found a very interesting news item. The head of the Hunters Association, Rokurinkin, was summoned without courtesy. Is he going to hunt the Flame Man? On the streets, people were animatedly talking about something that was spreading. Watching the recap of Enma's last stream, they wondered who his next target would be. In a building with dozens of floors was headquartered the Hunters Association. At a 6-seat table, some people were seated, waiting for the man looking out the window. The first person at the table was Fusao Jin, a man with white hair covering his broad shoulders. Diagonally across from him was a person with long blue hair playing cards, Rukawa Rei. Wearing a school uniform, the red-haired youth, Himuro Shinji, was also at the table. Anya Chiyo, wearing a mask over her mouth and nose, was fiddling with her phone. Lastly, with long green hair, Hazama Hitomi completed the group around the table. The man who had gathered the other 5 thanked them for coming together. Shiramin Yoshito wanted to get straight to the agenda he had mentioned. Shiramin wanted to talk about the Hunter, also known as the Flame Man. In the meeting, Shiramin intended to determine the association's position regarding him. Fusao Jin commented that apparently the Hunter was trying to seek justice for what happened to Ayumi. He found this kind of thing very sad. How about we offer leniency and promise to help him catch the real culprit and ask him to turn himself in? Rukawa, however, had another opinion. This brutality, he was born with it. Justifying what he does because of that reason is not something an ethical guardian should say. Putting himself in the Hunter's shoes, Shiramin stated he wouldn't turn himself in just because he was promised. With a strong sense of justice, Himuro, the schoolboy, seemed furious. But people are losing their lives. If we don't stop him, he will only sink deeper into misery. Anya had a more sensible opinion. Shouldn't we catch the real culprit behind the attack on Ayumi first? If we want to stop him, that should be the first step. Shiramin agreed with Anya, especially since the Hunters Association was created after that incident. Facing the gates and the known despair of the messengers, we only thought about conquering them. Meanwhile, we ended up facing various tragedies. Ayumi's case shocked the public, but that's just the tip of the iceberg, and the Hunters Association was created to change that. Shiramin also had some sense of reason. Because of our weakness, evil acts, and people like the Flame Man appear because we are not reliable, that is a truth that must be accepted. Neither Anya nor Himuro could disagree, but Rukawa wanted to know what they should do. I don't care what happens to bad people, but if civilians start getting hurt, it will be too late. Is that what your fortune says? Hearing such a strong opinion, Shiramin asked if Rukawa thought that, because his clairvoyance power said so. Rukawa had to deny it, since there was nothing of the sort. Shiramin ended up agreeing with Rukawa's words. You were accurate, so please, if you see anything, tell us. Suddenly, Shiramin became extremely dark. If he does something, I will eliminate him myself. Shiramin smiled briefly. I almost feel sorry for him. Obviously, that smile was fake. He actually did not care at all about morals or justice. The only reason Rukawa had accepted Shiramin's idea of creating a hunters association was because he had discovered he could get rich by becoming an executive. Rukawa had thought he could easily control this clueless rich kid. However, that was when Rukawa realized that even if the highest rank was A, Shiramin was on another level of awakened. With a smile on his face, Fusao asked everyone not to rush. Everyone, let's not get too excited. Hate the sin, not the sinner. I'm sure we can reach an understanding. Why don't you leave the flame man to me? Rukawa did not oppose. He thought the job really suited Fusao. The young Himuro also did not oppose since Fusao wanted it. Despite Fusao's will, Shiramin was still concerned. However, he said something that could convince him, a resolution where everyone smiles in the end, that's what I want too. Shiramin smiled at Fusao's response and thus made a decision. Then let's entrust this case to Fusao-san. If anyone finds any clues, inform him. After the meeting, Fusao headed to another place. People in the computer-filled room were surprised to see the man. Fusao-san? Some couldn't believe the 6 ring swords were visiting them. Smiling, Fusao greeted everyone, asking them not to worry about him. Fusao went to one of the chairs, asking the man sitting there for help. Sorry to interrupt. Did you find anything about the matter I asked? Remembering that Fusao had asked about the flame man, that man became uneasy. Fusao noticed the change in him and asked if there was a problem. Fusao recalled that the man had even shown his own face in one of his broadcasts. He didn't think it would be hard to identify him. Since it was problematic, the man asked Fusao to look for himself, so he opened a file, which loaded slowly. The file of Enma's footage was displayed in software that analyzed every part of the media. However, whenever the analysis and search software focused on his face, something strange happened. The screen showed an error and corrupted the search. Seeing this with his own eyes, Fusao was surprised. The man doing the analysis commented, "Every time we try to analyze, it keeps getting blocked. We even asked others who saw him." But the man opened an audio file about one of the people who supposedly saw the person sought. The flame man? He looks like a child, but also an adult. He's handsome, but also a little ugly. Goro, who had been arrested, was also questioned about the flame man's appearance. He thought a bit about the black-haired flame user. Having difficulty even remembering if that person was a man, Goro scratched his cheek. "I can't remember very well. It's like there's a fog in my memories." The reason no one remembered Enma or could recognize him with software was a contact lens given to him by Lord Vox. Vox gave a more detailed explanation about that item. This is a Shilome scale. Anyone who uses it will leave no impression, even showing their face. Even if caught on cameras, the identification of its user will not be exposed. You will be able to see them, but no one will see you. You'll remember them, but no one will remember you. That's the kind of effect such an item has. Receiving such a precious item, the protagonist faced Vox, incredulous to discover that dark beings could do incredible things like this. Vox showed how superior he was when commenting on the item. This is just a toy. However, human brains are extremely pathetic. Anyway, you're going to need this item, right? Vox approached the protagonist with a malicious and threatening smile. So suffering by staying here? If you were caught, that would be a very real problem. The protagonist dismissed Vox's idea, confirming to the being that he would use the item given to him. Immediately, he put on those contact lenses. Seeing him put on the lenses, Vox gave a more complete explanation. If anyone tries to dig up your identity, they will end up falling into a good and big dose of despair. Ha 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 ha. Now in front of the computer screen, Fusao realized they could not analyze the flame hunter. Moreover, he had already discovered that no one could remember him when asked. The man sitting in the chair could not help but apologize. "Yes, sorry, we really don't know anything." Furious, Fusao crushed that chair with his bare hands. The man sitting in the chair was startled by the noise and looked back. That was when he noticed. The man who always had a serene smile on his face and barely opened his eyes was showing a furious, desperate, and hungry teeth grinding. Fusao clenched his teeth as if he were going to tear them apart. "Acting smart, huh?" The young man trying to help him looked away, confused, since he had never seen Fusao make any expression other than a smile. In an instant, Fusao returned to normal. With his hand on his chin, he murmured, "It won't be easy to find him. That's a problem." Leaving the room, he asked everyone to continue the investigation. "If you find anything, tell me." As soon as Fusao left, the young man was able to relax. He approached a coworker to comment on what had just happened. However, at that very moment, Fusao appeared behind him with a sinister smile. "Have you found anything? Mind telling me too?" With a frightened look, the young man returned to his place, receiving advice from Fusao. "You're talented, so help me, okay?" Shortly after, Fusao left the research center in a car. As soon as he got into the vehicle, he put his hand on his face and activated an ability, Blood Attribute Metamorphosis. Slowly, Fusao's body began to change shape. His body structure, hands, legs, face. Fusao Fukakari's real appearance was muscular with blonde hair. Once the transformation finished, he gave an order to the woman beside him. Track this Enki through the underworld routes as well. The woman immediately accepted the order. Yes, Master Fukakari, I mean Lord Kurakami. The one who had caused the tragedy in Enma's life was now furious. When a dog shows its teeth, we cut them off. With Rokurinken and Kurakami Yaichi, we'll corner him from all sides. Inside a dungeon, Vox accompanied the protagonist. Rokurinken? Sounds like a Chinese restaurant. What's that? Enma explained to the entity that Rokurinken was the nickname given to the best hunters of the Union for each attribute. Since Vox seemed to understand nothing about attributes, only about his own power, Enma explained as they walked. The awakened powers vary, but they are fundamentally divided into attributes: earth, water, fire, wind, light, and darkness. Each awakened person fit into one of these attributes. Through each one's mentality and their desires to awaken, their abilities were defined. Rarely, an unusual mixture led to unique attributes or powers. Listening to the detailed explanation, Vox couldn't help but criticize. Humans are strange creatures, but what if someone with the earth attribute wants to fly? What happens if their desires don't match their attributes? Enma liked Vox's question because they would soon find the answer. Ahead of them, in a corner of the stone dungeon, a man in a suit tried to escape the cameras pointed at him by the man following him. As he turned on the camera, Enma greeted everyone. Hello, let's have fun again today. Today we'll have fun with Nagatsugu Igawa, a Renki hunter, 36 years old, and philanthropist. As Enma pointed the camera at the wealthy-looking man, many viewers of the broadcast recognized him. Nagatsugu Igawa was someone who used to raise donations for children who became orphans because of the portals. Enma pointed to the man while explaining to the broadcast. Children who lost their parents in the gate disasters are called portal orphans. He was one of those who reached out to help them, but most of the donations went into his own pockets. The broadcast image suddenly changed, and Enma showed the truth. Nagatsugu made the children work in factories. The entire broadcast was outraged at seeing such a thing. Nagatsugu hurriedly tried to defend himself. That's a false accusation. You have no proof. Slowly, Enma approached the bastard, whispering something in his ear. Nagatsugu was incredulous at what he heard. But you're useless. That was when Enma excited the whole chat by showing his flames. Nagatsugu didn't stand still. He immediately used his awakened ability, making a large amount of water appear from his advanced technique. I did nothing wrong. I'm not the bad guy. Gathering all that water, Nagatsugu created a water golem around himself. The viewers were surprised and wondered if fire could defeat water. Although he knew the power of the water golem ability, Enma also knew its nature was vanity, the desire to appear greater than it really was. That awakened one was desperate, stubborn, and ugly, far from what water should be, calm and flexible. Vox understood why the man didn't match his ability. Confident, Nagatsugu threw a water ball at the protagonist. He believed he would defeat Enma, and blamed him for challenging him. However, smoke began to rise from that water as it evaporated. Controlling the water golem with a hurricane of flames, Enma mocked, "An empty show has no real power." Nagatsugu couldn't believe his water was boiling and evaporating. Then Enma said goodbye. "Your sins will be burned to ashes." The powerful flames evaporated all the water and covered the rich old man. Little by little, the flames died down, and Nagatsugu fell permanently near Enma, who explained something to the broadcast. Hey, despite him shouting advanced magic, he was just a good beginner. Leaving the chat with their own doubts, Enma prepared to end the broadcast. Remembering how desperate Nagatsugu had been when hearing him, Vox became curious about what Enma had whispered. Enma revealed that he and Ayumi were also orphans and had stayed at one of Nagatsugu's facilities for a while. Vox then understood. Nagatsugu had panicked trying to protect his false image. Opening his flames, Enma realized that even so, that was a reaction that fed the fuel. Enma compared himself to Nagatsugu Igawa for having made a contract with Vox, knowing he would gain strength, a power that grew the more pain it caused. He wanted to master such an ability, no matter how long it took. Vox was surprised to discover that Enma had awakened the power of flames beyond his own. In any case, the entity rooted for him, even knowing beings that didn't fit attribute concepts. Changing the subject, Enma remembered it was time for an appointment. Vox was surprised and at the same time curious. Taking out his phone, the protagonist saw that his name had arrived somewhere. Reading some messages, he headed toward the dungeon's exit. The person who had sent the message was direct. "I need to talk to you about Ayumi-san and Reika Minase." The protagonist went into an alley. He was going to meet the person who wanted to talk about Ayumi and Reika. He remembered who the hunter Minase Reika was. She used to be a gate streamer, and apparently still was. The protagonist clicked on one of her videos. What he saw was the girl abusing fan service and streaming in a bikini. Enma almost rolled his eyes seeing how low her content had fallen. Curious, Vox asked what the relationship was between this woman called Reika and his sister. The protagonist explained that Reika was a veteran streamer, and Ayumi had received a lot of help from her. Hearing this made Vox think she seemed like a good person. Then Enma explained the rest. Ayumi followed her tip and entered a solo gate, where Yachi Kurokami was waiting. Enma remembered there had been many malicious comments at the time, and the person who had contacted him, someone named Doggy, talked about having seen Reika with gangs. Vox got excited because it didn't seem like false information or a prank. After walking a little further, they arrived at the meeting place. Looking around, Vox asked, "Do you know what the person you're meeting looks like? He's the type who talks bad about others behind their backs, right? Must be one of those awful scammers." Then Enma pointed to the end of the alley, where a girl was surrounded by two men. Could it be them? One of the scammers surrounding the girl, skinny and blonde, tried to intimidate her. "Hey, miss, walking around here is dangerous, you know?" Next to him, a bald man laughed cheerfully. Vox couldn't help but clap upon finding despicable people. The scammers tried to pull off the girl's hood to see her face, and despite her efforts, they succeeded. However, the bald man, seeing her face, looked confused. The girl with many scars on her face tried to hide. "No, don't look at me!" Frightened by her, they knocked her to the ground. Irritated, they left her behind, going away while she apologized. It was then that Enma approached the two scammers. "Wait a minute, you like to judge people by appearances, don't you?" He smiled maliciously, provoking them. "Have you ever looked at yourselves in the mirror?" The bald scammer immediately drew a dagger that ignited with flames, forming a middle finger. His partner also prepared himself, sharpening his hair like a porcupine's quills. However, before they engaged in a fight, they saw an attribute surround Enma, proving he was an awakened one. A small spark appeared in the protagonist's hand. Just one ash should be enough. Scandals are like fire. They don't end after streams finish. They just grow and spread, burning endlessly. That was another form of power Enma would seek. Not as strong as reactions on broadcasts, but enough for small fish like those two scammers. In an instant, Enma shot the spark that crossed the alley like a wave of fire. The porcupine hair was burned, and the hand holding the knife was already fried. Approaching the two who could no longer resist, the protagonist asked, "Which one of you is Doggy?" The spiky-haired one didn't understand what he was talking about, nor did his partner, who began to cry. The protagonist was confused to discover that the one he was looking for was neither of them. Then, hearing the girl's voice, Enma turned around, only to hear what she said. That must be me. I'm Doggy. Nice to meet you, and sorry." The protagonist was surprised. "It's you?" Shortly after, Enma, Doggy, and Vox entered a bar. The girl began explaining after they arrived. "I work as Reika's assistant. I help her prepare for photos, organize equipment, and that's how I saw her meeting with them. One day, Doggy had seen Reika follow a blonde man and followed them to an alley. She remembered and filmed how they were talking about Ayumi. She wanted to reveal it to someone since then, but was too scared to be discovered. The protagonist understood her thought. That's why you sent so many troll comments, but you never imagined things would turn out like that. That was confirmation for the protagonist that Reika was involved. Wanting to know more, Enma asked if Reika and Kurokami still met. Doggy confirmed the suspicion. "Yes, but it doesn't seem like things are going well between them." The girl remembered how one day Reika got furious right there in that bar. She yelled at Kurokami about the vigilante who was asking about Ayumi Akagi. The man surrounded by women didn't care about Reika's yelling. "Why are you getting worked up? You're the one who hired me. You're the one who did that to her." Facing Kurokami's malicious smile, Reika tried to defend herself. "No, I only told you to scare her. It was you." Kurokami didn't care about her accusations. He just grabbed his drink while teasing her. "So how about you tell that to that Enki when he finds you?" Reika was furious to be pressured. Doggy tried to paint Reika as a victim. Since that day, she has to do everything in her streams to make money quickly, because they're taking money from her to keep her silent. No matter how hard she works, they take it all. That's why Reika and Kurokami got into a fight, breaking their relationship from Reika's first insult. However, Kurokami never cared, saying, "Have you ever looked at yourself in the mirror?" Since Reika couldn't do anything against him, Kurokami just acted superior, cornering her. Kurokami's subordinates even tried to take advantage, but she was still too strong for them. She managed to prevent them from touching her. In one of these attempts, Kurokami saw Reika open a hole in the wall of their hideout. She really had shown some strength by pushing everyone away. "Don't get the wrong idea. I came here to complain. I never asked for anyone's help. Reika Manasi hasn't fallen so low to need protection from you." Despite the strength Reika showed, Kurokami still enjoyed teasing the girls, laughing at her. The whole situation that happened between them was heard by Doggy, who, behind a wall, kept it all to herself. Since she couldn't save Ayumi back then, now Doggy wanted to do things right. Enma managed to better understand the situation and how Doggy was still connected to Reika. Looking up, Doggy was startled to see the gaze of the one she knew as Enki. With a manic look, the protagonist laughed. So you're saying we can turn everything to ashes, right? Ha ha ha! The protagonist discovered that Manase Reika and Kuromaki Yaichi were still connected. Embodying the person who told him this, the protagonist asked how he could find them. The woman kneeling on the floor showed a worried look. What do you want with Reika-san? That young woman used to stream gate raid events but ended up seriously injured in a dungeon, and her face became disfigured. At that time, she was a mess, living on the streets. However, Reika took her in when she was at her lowest. The young woman followed Reika everywhere, even knowing she wasn't exactly a good person. But since Reika reached out to her, she felt she owed everything to that woman. Seeing how the woman sided with Reika, Enma was confused. Then why did you want to meet me? You knew that by giving me information, you would put Reika in danger. The woman, desperate, clung to the protagonist's clothes. If I didn't do this, you would suffer. The protagonist tried to distance himself from the mess she was creating, as if trying to prevent everyone from getting hurt. Clinging to the protagonist's clothes, the woman asked weakly, "Is that wrong?" She remembered the dangerous moments and how, during them, she wanted both good and bad people to stay alive if possible. With tears welling in her eyes, she cried, "Is wanting that really so strange?" However, Enma reminded her of something crucial. But Ayumi is not alive. She was discarded like trash. Hatred consumed Enma's mind just recalling that event. Walking away from that is not kindness, it's weakness. The girl opened her mouth to argue but found no words. Standing up, she gave the information Enma wanted. Reika-san will be at the art concert hall in the Eastern Ruins this Saturday. I double-checked the times so there are no mistakes. Enma thanked her for the information, keeping in mind that Reika had also been deceived. With everything they had talked about, the girl said goodbye. But before she left, Enma gave her a warning. If Reika apologizes, she will still stay alive. The girl slightly opened her mouth in surprise and then nodded at what he meant. Soon, Saturday night arrived, and the full moon lit up the ruins district. This was an area densely contaminated due to the portal disasters 10 years ago, cursed with elements of darkness, toxins, and spells. In this place, there were even zones impossible to be accessed by humans who still wanted to live. The only inhabitants were those poisonous monsters and awakened street creatures that had nowhere else to go. Arriving at the location, Vox asked the young man what he thought. The entity lord believed that instead of trusting that girl, they should imagine it could be a trap. Going to the Ark building, Enma wanted to flip a coin and find out the truth by entering. Vox bet it was a trap, the most obvious guess. As soon as he reached a door leading to the studio, the protagonist was met with a strong light. Inside a hall, there was a group of at least 10 people waiting for him. He had lost the bet. Those people looked at him maliciously, showing they were not joking around. Immediately, they all rushed to attack him. Watching from a higher place, Reika was with that girl. Is that the famous Enki? I didn't think he would come alone. Maybe I gathered too many people. Beside Reika, the girl was desperate. Reika-san, what is this? Who are these people? She remembered that 10 years ago, when 24% of the population awakened, everything became chaos. Some people went mad and decided to vent their frustrations. But when things stabilized, those trash had nowhere to go. Now they sneaked through the shadows of the ruins. Reika was proud to let such people create the chaos they needed. These were the connections a veteran hunter possessed, and that could not be underestimated. The girl, confused, realized that the whole situation seemed like something Reika had already expected. Reika darkly showed a manic look. Of course I knew. Thank you for bringing him here, you stupid little bitch. I completely saw through your plan. Surprise and despair appeared in the girl's eyes when she realized she had been discovered. Reika was confident that by eliminating the famous Enki, the truth behind Ayumi would become obscure. All she needed to do was the cleanup. However, the moment she bragged, powerful flames completely filled the concert hall. Feeling that firepower, Reika looked down with a suspicious gaze. With the camera on, Enma walked through the fire, consuming his enemies. He pointed the camera directly at Reika. Thank you for the undeniable proof, Manase Reika-san. Discovering the truth, the people watching the stream were shocked and quickly encouraged Enma to punish her. Everything Reika said was transmitted thanks to a microphone hidden among the clothes of the girl who helped the protagonist. Reika also grabbed the phone to check if she had really been recorded. Meanwhile, Enma kept reminding her of what she had done. When you attacked Ayumi, you became the mentor of all the chaos you caused. I knew you would show up here. Wondering why her voice was being broadcast, Reika shot an angry glance sideways at the girl behind her. Trembling, the girl showed the microphone she had received. He said that if you apologized to Ayumi, he would forgive you. I believed that deep down, Reika-san also regretted it. The girl began to cry as she revealed what she had done. Angrily, Reika dropped her phone to the floor, while Enma mocked her. So everything went exactly as you planned? Furious, Reika conjured a sword condensed from water. Don't get cocky, Enki! From where she was, Reika attacked the protagonist with her blue sword. It was then that Enma revealed her profile while inflaming his flames even more. Manasi Reika, 24 years old, streamer, rank B hunter. Your charge is ending the life of Akagi Ayumi. Reika's true colors were revealed. Vox had always wondered how she would react. Seeing her choose a frontal attack, he mocked, "She's crazy." The girl who still cared for Reika tried to stop her, to save her. Reika moved quickly with a skill. Water attribute, advanced skill, water swordsman, rapier model. Manasa Reika used the water attribute, which matched her blue hair. In her streams, she fought in close combat using her water rapier. Anticipating the rapier, Enma ignited flames around his body. Seeing her in the air, Enma thought of an attack to knock her down. In an instant, he punched the air, launching a burst of fire toward Reika. The fire enveloped the target, who kept advancing. Then Enma realized he hadn't hit the real target. In a flash, Reika appeared beside him. With a thrust, she tried to strike him, but Enma leaned back, dodging. The attack was so fast that he still suffered a small scratch for not reacting in time. With the speed of her fencing, Reika continued pressing the protagonist, forcing him to retreat with each blow. Quick attacks, precise strikes, even triple sequences were launched by her. At one point, Enma jumped backward several times, putting distance between them. After all the attacks failed, Reika was surprised. "You seem surprisingly calm. How did you notice my surprise attack? It's impossible to perceive." Wiping sweat, Enma revealed the reason. "Because you're only rank B above all." Hunters were ranked from A to F rank B, and above had strength beyond human capabilities. They formed humanity's main battle force, with skills and numbers. That was what defined a rank B hunter. Enma continued as he stood up. "You're also a veteran streamer. You would never lose control or be embarrassed in front of the cameras, even with your true identity exposed. That would never happen, so I realized you were just pretending to deceive your enemy." Reika liked the answer, but only enough to give him 50 points. Immediately, she changed the style of her water rapier to the clumsy model. Brandishing her sword, Reika created a wall of water that covered the entire hall. With her experience, the protagonist understood she was trying to block his vision. In an instant, Reika moved behind him, smiling. "This way. If you can figure out how I move, I'll give you 50 more points." When Enma noticed Reika behind him, the rapier's attack was already approaching. The powerful blow hit him and threw him away. He gritted his teeth as he was dragged, but soon managed to plant his feet on the ground, stopping quickly. Vox appeared beside him, teasing, "She's crazy." Enma stared at her, realizing she wasn't agitated. I guess she's used to this kind of situation. Or maybe she's just used to scandals. The worst thing to do during a scandal was to try to put out the fire alone. If the person involved gave explanations, others would say they were making excuses. If they got angry, video clips would be cut to create drama. If they cried, they'd be accused of playing the victim. However, by staying calm and confident, it was hard for the fire to keep burning. Soon the firestorm would begin to lose strength, and Enma knew that. Vox shrugged. Humans are inconvenient creatures. No matter how angry they get, if the other person doesn't flinch, you end up losing steam. Enma agreed. The stronger your skin, the stronger you were. Walking through the studio corridors, Reika carried 2 swords. She smiled provocatively when she saw Enma ahead. "What happened? Your fire seems to be fading." In the outer alley where he was, Enma was cornered. Reika was confident and underestimated her opponent. "You don't seem as well as before." Vox was excited to see how Enma would react. "What will you do, arsonist?" Enma had a simple answer for him. "I'll make the winds blow in my favor." Enma still hadn't discovered how Reika moved so fast, but he had found a countermeasure. Putting his hand on the ground, he used the flames once again through a skill, Purgatory. In an instant, the flames spread, covering the largest possible area. However, they couldn't touch Reika, who was protected by a layer of attribute around her. Although not hit, she still closed her eyes, avoiding the intense glow of the flames. "Are you trying a long-range attack?" Immediately, Reika cut through the air via the water wall that created a zone around her. Approaching Enma once again, she smiled. "Useless. You think you can stop me?" Facing the woman who appeared behind him, Enma's expression showed no surprise. Then Reika stepped back as her attack evaporated into a cloud of steam. Reika couldn't believe what had happened. That guy had turned her skill into high-temperature steam, making it circulate around him like a barrier. The protagonist smiled, seeing his plan had worked. "The winds may be against me, but the weather is still calm. For someone who controls fire, this is simple. Welcome, my guests, to our finest sauna experience." In saunas, a heat wave pours water over hot stones, making the heat feel more intense. But the ambient temperature doesn't rise. The heat is just transferred more easily to the skin. This is caused by latent heat. The protagonist laughed loudly, explaining the combination he had created. An overheated barrier. Step into its range and you'll suffer severe burns. Not even a curtain can block it. Enma delighted himself, looking again at Reika, returning her words. "Oh, you don't look so well." He could see Reika trying to retreat, not knowing what to do. "You hesitated, didn't you? That crack in your expression shows it. The flames of a scandal never miss that moment." The broadcast was still running at full speed. Everyone already expected Reika's downfall. They encouraged Enma to continue, to make her pay for what she did to Ayumi. They wanted to see the flames. As they wanted, Enma overflowed with flames. And now, welcome to round 2. Let's start the fun. The people watching the stream could feel how hot the mist around Enma was. The protagonist knew exactly what he would do, cause heat drowning. Those watching, seeing how he had gained the upper hand in the fight, eagerly awaited Reika's defeat. It was at that moment that she showed an expressionless look. Hey, want to make a deal? The true mastermind who caused that to Ayumin? Do you want to know who he is? Enma was confused by those words. Then the experienced woman in front of the cameras showed a sad look. We were also deceived by the real culprit. No one would believe Reika's words, not even the stream viewers. Reika raised her hands, making her swords disappear, asking Enma to listen to her. Seeing Reika deactivate her skill, Enma wondered what she was trying to do. Then someone who knew Reika commented on the stream, "Stop right there." Only old veterans knew how Reika really fought. Immediately after making her swords disappear, Reika used a basic water skill, Splash. With the skill, she threw water forward, increasing her movement speed to retreat. It was at that moment Enma discovered how she could reach his back so quickly. Immediately, he ran toward her, determined not to let her escape. However, Reika was not running away. After putting some distance, she pointed her index finger at Enma. "Turn your back, and you'll be hit." In an instant, she activated a new skill that created multiple water weapons, Musketeer Cascade. In the blink of an eye, the long-range weapons fired. The protagonist was surprised and couldn't avoid being hit by the water strikes. That same person who knew Reika revealed the truth in the chat. Reika only became a melee fighter because of the streams. Originally, she's a long-range attacker. With a long-barreled weapon on her shoulder, Reika revealed why she hid her true skill. Firepower and precision shots are important too, but they don't make good content. That's why the self-defense sub-skills took control. Having risen after defending the attacks, Enma frowned. In front of him was Reika, who remembered the time she felt trapped in a cage. When monsters appeared before her, what she wished for was power to pierce holes in anything. Laughing maniacally, Reika wished to become a saying, "I am like water falling against a rock until I pierce it." In an instant, her magical water muskets fired again. Vox couldn't help but laugh at her ace up the sleeve, but Enma believed he could handle it. Since the shots weren't as fast as real guns, they were slow enough to allow dodging. But for Reika, attacking directly wasn't the only way to fight. Using water magic, she employed the splash skill again, practically teleporting close to Enma. Immediately, the protagonist activated the purgatory skill. Flames enveloped the entire alley as Reika approached him. The girl kept a smile as she advanced toward the protagonist, who stared at her. However, at the last second, Reika didn't attack Enma. She passed by him. She put her hands in front of her body, protecting herself from the layer of steam and smoke, succeeding in her plan. In fact, she ran to the building entrance behind Enma. The protagonist realized he had been tricked, but Vox was confused. Now, isn't she a rat in a cage? That place had only one exit but many hiding spots. Enma understood that if he entered carelessly, he would face a storm of attacks. For him, that was extremely irritating. Vox then decided to give a tip. "Don't take the initiative. Do you know what you have that's different from her?" The protagonist was confused by what the Flame Lord said and prepared to listen. Vox smiled as he spoke. "Skills, man. Skills are physical manifestations of the Awakened's desires, and they're powerful. It's true you do a lot with your flames, but they still don't compare to real skills." Enma didn't want to regret what he didn't have, but Vox was there to deliver excellent news. The hidden trait of the arsonist's skill. Fire doesn't just destroy. It also has the power to create. If you turn a powerful Awakened into ashes, you'll absorb one of their main skills. Pausing to reflect, Enma realized Reika must have very powerful skills. He couldn't believe that by defeating someone rank B, he could acquire one of their skills. Vox confirmed. "Amazing, right? One attack and you can turn the tables." The protagonist sighed, wishing he had known this earlier. He then understood what Vox meant. If he defeated Reika, he would gain a skill strong enough to surpass her. But still, that didn't make much sense. Vox didn't believe that thought. "Are you an idiot? You've already turned into ashes someone ranked higher than her." Vox reminded the protagonist of something he had never noticed. This because Enma didn't remember. That's impossible. Then he realized. He remembered who he had turned into ashes. Enma stood still in front of the club door. Inside the club, Reika waited, watching the stream, observing him. She waited with one of her weapons for him to enter like an idiot. What Reika expected happened. Enma entered through the front door. She delighted in this, giving a big smile. "I won. Repent on the other side of life." In an instant, the multiple muskets sprang into action, aiming at the entrance door. Reika smiled, waiting to see the result. However, she was surprised. She couldn't believe the skill she was seeing. In front of her, the famous Enki had created a fiery scythe. Enma stared at Reika with a dark look. I heard this from someone once. When people leave, they don't go anywhere. They just turn into ashes. With a somber expression, Enma's eyes shone with the deepest crimson, like the most scorching fire. Your sins, let them burn. Learning skill, Levi of Blaze. In an instant, the power of the flames on the scythe he held increased. Skills, they were obtained when awakening occurred or during growth. This was an abbreviated term for special abilities, those that arose from desires and wills. From the will to climb a cliff to the desire to become more beautiful through makeup. The nature and performance of skills depended on the unique traits of the people who desired them, like the desire to create magical weapons or to become stronger using martial arts. Skills used techniques to manipulate energy. They were divided into 3 stages: beginner, intermediate, and advanced. The further the user progressed, the more powerful their skills became. Like a phoenix, they could also become more flashy. Some skills could also have specific rules. Hunters were always desperate to get their hands on advanced skills, but there were no tutorials on the internet for that. In reality, to manifest advanced-level skills, natural talent was necessary, something possible only for high-ranking hunters. However, Vox, the Lord entity, did not follow human rules. Seeing the flames on the scythe Enma carried, he was tremendously excited. "We can't do it just this way, right, arsonist?" While he spoke, Enma advanced against Reika's attacks. Spinning his scythe like a propeller, he blocked each of those attacks. Then, he spun the scythe in his hand until positioning it again for combat. His sharp gaze then turned to Reika. She couldn't believe he had used an advanced skill. It was impossible to believe. Most advanced skills were in the hands of top-rank hunters, with only a few exceptions. It was a privilege for those blessed with talent. But Reika remembered how the man in front of her didn't move like an amateur. So, he must be at least a rank B hunter, with great combat experience. But Reika knew that if he were a hunter, his name should be everywhere. However, she had never heard of this skill before. Reika found a similarity in the skill he used. She remembered the scythe created by Ayumi with her light attribute martial art, Stella's Harvest. Like Ayumi's, this was a skill where a scythe was filled with power. Desperation appeared in Reika's eyes as she retreated. "What is that? Do you have any relation to Ayumi?" But this was something Reika didn't need to know. Wielding the scythe, Enma only said, "You only need to know that she can no longer return home, not after what happened to her. She can no longer smile. There is no point and there is no story. This only turns my suffering into ashes." As the flames filled the entire event hall, they began to gather on the scythe Enma held. Learning skill, Revi of Blades. With eyes as red as flames, Enma gathered the fire with all his hatred. Facing the approaching attack, the frightened Reika couldn't move. Regaining her composure, she raised the carbine she held. But in front of her, Enma would not stop, even if she begged. Desperate, Reika tried to retreat. In a rushed attempt to counterattack, she summoned 2 weapons, one in each hand. Her forced counterattack quickly headed toward Enma. However, he just waited, swinging the scythe backward. Imitating his sister's attack, Enma fired and brandished his strike. Wave of darkness. Advancing, Enma hit each of the attacks coming his way, knocking them down one by one in sequence. Continuing her shots, Reika grew increasingly incredulous and desperate. Her enemy was rapidly approaching. Her gaze had fallen into complete panic and disbelief. She no longer knew what to do. Her whole life flashed before her eyes. Did I do something wrong? There are many worse people out there who always suffer in the dirt. Whenever Reika thought she had finally succeeded, she saw someone she considered worse surpassing her. Even after deciding to take everything she wanted, she had been exposed and used by someone stronger than herself. She was always furious for being the loser, for always being prey to someone else. Still, she had a desperate desire. "This should be my turn!" With all the remaining energy, she managed to move away from Enma, using her long-range skill countless times. However, Enma was not where she aimed. He had already passed by her. "Your turn? Something like that no longer exists." Reika, like everything around her, was destroyed in an instant. The unquenchable flame struck her, hiding mercy. Thus, Enma ended one of his grudges. "The weight of your sins will burn you." Manasi Reika had fallen to the ground with her arms outstretched. The people watching the broadcast could see her through the mist created by fire and ice, and they wondered if she was still alive. Vox walked over to Reika with a curious look. As he approached her, he asked Enma, "Did she survive or did you leave her alive on purpose?" Enma nodded at the shadowy being's question. "She's an experienced veteran. Her water attribute is advantageous against fire. She's not weak enough to perish instantly. She'll suffer more if she stays alive." With a grim look, Enma pointed the camera so the audience could see Reika's condition. Above her, the protagonist intended to ask her a few things directly, but at that moment, Reika's mouth moved slightly. Curious, Enma and Vox leaned in to hear what she had to say. Suddenly, Reika began to scream, "Puppy girl, get over here! Stop hiding and help me! Hurry!" As a last hope, Reika called the most unlikely person to help her. Vox couldn't believe it. Oh, come on! She betrayed her and now she's begging for help? Let's add some imperas to this perfect despair. Suddenly, a shadow jumped down into the hall. The girl Reika had called had actually shown up. The Lord of Flames couldn't believe the girl had really come, but Reika, upon seeing her, was extremely satisfied. That's right. Remember who took you in when everyone abandoned you? Who made it possible for you, an uneducated orphan from the gate, to survive? With each question, the girl nodded with her head lowered, answering that it had been Reika. Reika laughed as she saw the girl moving closer to her side. That's right. I'm the only person who cares about you, and if I'm not here, you'll be all alone. Vox didn't like what he was seeing. There was nothing elegant about it. Viewers quickly began criticizing Reika for making the girl so dependent on her. When the girl appeared, the protagonist pulled out a paper to show her. I took the liberty of investigating you as well. Nicknamed Puppy Girl, 18 years old, your name. I'll keep that private for now. On one side, many people accused the girl of being an accomplice, while others tried to defend her, seeing her as Reika's victim. Enma soon continued telling her story. After an accident during a campaign, she was left with scars all over her body due to a surprise attack from a group, becoming a dark attribute hunter who withdrew from the public eye. Enma held the file of the girl named Ichiko. Apparently, she had been a popular streamer in the past, something meant to be kept secret. He only revealed what was necessary. A tragedy happened to her, just like with Ayumi, and Manase Reika, known for crushing rookies, took her in. Doesn't that story sound a little too convenient? Even Ichiko could see the coincidences between her own case and Ayumi's, but Reika didn't want to give her the chance to realize the truth and shouted at Enma, "Can you not speak based on speculation? Do you have any proof?" Internally, Reika was smiling. There was no evidence because she had destroyed all of it. All this time, she had kept Puppy Girl under her control. Reika knew Ichiko wouldn't defy her, making her the perfect shield for an escape. But at that moment, Reika heard something unexpected from Ichiko's mouth. I already knew. Surprised, Reika watched the girl continue to speak. Ichiko hadn't rushed to save her. Instead, she revealed everything she knew, that her wounds had been caused by Reika. Reika panicked as her last hope turned against her. What are you saying? You have no proof. Then Ichiko reminded her of her ability. My nose is better than most. That day I definitely smelled you. Reika couldn't believe she and her partners had been discovered, that Ichiko had known the truth all along. Curious, Enma asked why Ichiko hadn't contacted the authorities. Head down, Ichiko explained. That wouldn't have counted as evidence. Besides, like Reika said, I was alone, scared. If I'd been stronger, if I hadn't made excuses like saying I didn't want to see anyone get hurt, maybe Ayumi-san would still be alive. Tears fell from Ichiko's eyes as she released all the guilt she had been carrying. Reika was furious that Ichiko was painting herself as the victim. Don't act like you're a good person, damn it. You're just as guilty as me. Ichiko didn't argue back. Instead, she slowly knelt down, bowing fully to the ground. I know that, so please end it quickly, Brother of Flames. Reika couldn't believe Ichiko was surrendering. If you're going to give up, do it alone. Don't forget the debt you owe me for taking care of you. Look at yourself. With that face, do you really think you can pretend to be human? Reika's harsh words were already giving Enma a headache. Before she realized it, the protagonist drew the flame scythe once again, pressing it against her. With a cold voice that contrasted the heat of the flames, he asked, Do you want more scars? Terrified, Reika tried to back away, pleading for him to stop. But the flames on the scythe grew more intense, as did Enma's gaze. Your chance at redemption is over. Like the eruption of a volcano, the flames fell upon the villainess with a heat that could evaporate any matter. Feeling the overflow of despair, Vox screamed joyfully, Yes! Here it comes! It's coming! What a delicious flavor! Enma let Vox feast while bidding farewell to the broadcast. That's all for today, so I'll see you next time. Even though she had surrendered, Ichiko was trembling with fear. After walking up to her, Enma reminded her, You said even bad people shouldn't be eliminated if it can be avoided. You were right. That was a weakness I had. But you're not weak. Surprised by Enma's words, Ichiko lifted her head. He couldn't help but praise the story of resilience she had endured. Even after suffering and losing everything, even after enduring all the humiliation of submitting to Reika, you still tried to save Ayumi. Seeing that Enma was tempted to spare her, Ichiko pleaded for him to reconsider. Now that she had nothing left, she didn't want to be alone. Enma went against the girl's despairing thoughts. Reika said you had no one, but there are still people who care about you. Someone like me may not bring you happiness, but I want you to live and be happy. Giving her a chance to stand back up, Enma extended his hand to her. Both of them had always dreamed of having someone support them. And now, Enma was doing just that for her. Ichiko tried to hold back her tears, but she couldn't stop them from streaming down her face, sobbing uncontrollably. As Ichiko began to recover emotionally, Enma walked away from the warehouse. While they walked, Vox approached, questioning, "Are you projecting your sister onto her? How kind of you." Ignoring the question, the protagonist asked another one. "Do you think she'll remember? I'm using the Shylome scale. Whoever uses it doesn't leave strong impressions, even when seen directly. Even if captured on camera, their identity won't be revealed. She'll forget me too. Do you think she'll at least remember that someone wished for her to be happy?" Enma's question left the Lord of Flames intrigued. He merely shrugged, revealing he had no idea what would happen. Inumori Ichiko, a rank B hunter of the dark attribute. Her ability, Beast Syndrome Dog Model, allowed her to gain the traits of a predatory canine by transforming her body. As a side effect, her constitution became dog-like. According to studies, dogs identified and remembered things through scent, hierarchy, territories, and even injuries. For them, sensory perception was far stronger than visual memory. As they walked, Vox questioned whether Enma wasn't going to extract any information from Reika, since she'd been eliminated in the heat of the moment. Walking and talking, the two stopped when they heard a loud siren coming from a destroyed part of the city. Massive loudspeakers announced, "A hostile organism has escaped from a gate. Citizens in the vicinity, please evacuate calmly." Contrary to the speaker's request, people were fleeing in a panic upon hearing the alert. Vox couldn't help but complain about the noise of the human world, but asked Enma not to interfere, and to leave the matter to the Hunter Guild or something similar. However, defying the request of the dark being, Enma made the choice to run toward the danger. That place still lingered in Enma's memories. There used to be a restaurant there that Ayumi loved. In his heart, Enma at least wanted to let the memories of his sister live on. Seeing his actions, Vox sighed. It was difficult for a creature of darkness to understand human emotions, but still, knowing someone powerful was already at the scene, Vox figured things were about to get interesting. In that neighborhood, there was a small Japanese restaurant. When they visited it on a special night, Enma couldn't help but feel concerned. "Do you really want to come here? At least on your birthday, we could go somewhere nicer?" But Ayumi responded with a smile to her brother's worry. "It's fine. I love this place." He ended up giving in to his sister's wish. The food there was truly delicious, although he still felt sad that he couldn't celebrate her birthday more properly. Suddenly, the siblings were startled as the restaurant lights went out. Unexpectedly, the restaurant owner appeared, carrying a beautiful strawberry cake to their table. "Happy birthday, Ayumi. It's not much, but this is a small gift from us." Seeing such a delicious-looking cake left Ayumi in awe. Enma became worried since they hadn't ordered it, but the manager reassured him. It was on the house. "Whenever Ayumi comes to the restaurant, it lights up. This is our way of saying thanks. We're rooting for you." Like a father, the manager gently ruffled both their heads. Even though they were no longer children, they still enjoyed the gesture. Ayumi couldn't help but smile and show her brother that it had been the right choice. "See? Wasn't this the perfect place?" Smiling, Enma agreed with her. Now, years later, Enma was rushing through the streets with a furrowed brow. Crossing roads swarmed with giant insects, he wondered why the gate leak had to happen there of all places. Normally, monsters didn't come out of the gate. Only when the celestial messenger appeared and blew their trumpet would the gates open and monsters emerge. Until then, the outside of the gates wasn't dangerous, or so humanity had thought. The first time a monster crossed a gate was alongside a hunter who had caged it to use it for fame. If certain conditions were met, a newly emerged gate could release monsters into the human world. They couldn't be boss monsters. Their passage speed had to reach 110 meters per second, and they couldn't be sent back. Thus, humanity learned what they came to call a leak. Good people used this knowledge to prevent accidental leaks or to advance monster research. Still, there were bad people. Wanted individuals used their powers inside dungeons, forcing monsters out through the gates. Outside, the authorities were already prepared for such scenarios. "Fugitive in sight, you are completely surrounded. Exit the gate calmly and surrender." But in one such case, instead of the fugitive coming out of the gate, monsters emerged. Swarms of goblins attacked the authorities, revealing how some hunters used their knowledge for personal gain, whether through accidental or deliberate leaks. Locusts and giant bees had taken over the streets. Seeing the monsters in his path, the protagonist ignited the flame in his fist. "Out of my way!" His punch tore through the air in a blaze of fire, slicing through all the monsters in his path. After clearing the street, Enma finally reached the restaurant. However, his concern turned out to be unnecessary. There was already a sign on the door stating the restaurant was closed. Seeing that there was no one left inside, he sighed. In front of the temporary closure notice, Vox grinned mockingly, reminding Enma that he had encountered this before. Irritated, the protagonist shoved the Lord of Darkness aside. "Shut up and mind your own business." Although he had already entrusted his flames to Enma, Vox warned him, "I can't tell you how to use the flames, but you're drawing too much attention with them." The protagonist told him not to worry. Looking at the fires blazing around the neighborhood, he said, "A little more chaos won't attract attention in this mess." Elsewhere in the neighborhood, several people had been saved upon seeing someone using the fire attribute. In front of the cameras, a young man in a school uniform cheered, "Thank you all for waiting. Now we're safe because I, Himuro, am here." Shinji Himuro, a 16-year-old, was an A-rank fire attribute hunter. Himuro, from the Sword of the Six Ethics, drew attention from both adults and schoolgirls his age. The insects were drawn to the powerful enemy that had appeared and began to gather around him. Himuro closed his eyes and crossed his arms in front of his body. Exhaling, he drew his arms to the sides. His eyes opened and the flames he had created flared up. "Come at me, beasts!" As if they understood the provocation, the insects lunged in fury. Flames encircled Himuro's fist as he declared, "Intermediate fire technique, flaming fist." Himuro's fist struck the locust, the first of the monsters. He moved quickly, hitting each of the enemies, who were thrown back by his power. In a flash, Himuro had already attacked the entire group of giant insects. In a corner of the city, two suited men were conversing. One of them was worried, as Himuro's attacks hadn't destroyed the monsters. "It looks like it didn't work." However, the other man beside him remained calm. "No, it's only just beginning. The true value of that ability comes afterward." One of the locusts raised its claws, attacking Himuro as if he were unaware of its presence. The claws came in fast, but before Himuro could be hit, he raised his flaming fist. "Explode!" As soon as the command was given, the flames planted in each of the monsters detonated from within. Several fireballs turned the night into a real giant insect barbecue. With the explosion of the monsters, Himuro smiled at the people around him. "I will protect this city." Though far from the commotion, the protagonist still managed to watch the scene. At his side, Vox remarked, "Certainly strong, but that's not my style. All that shining gives me a headache." As they resumed walking, Enma agreed with Vox's complaint. Knowing how messy things would get if they met, the protagonist wanted to avoid confrontation and leave the situation to the hunter. It was then, just as Enma was about to turn and leave, that he heard a young girl's frightened scream around the corner. Terrified by the monster in front of her, the child found herself cornered as her back hit a wall. Before her stood a gigantic centipede staring at her, ready to make her its next meal. The girl had nowhere to run and was desperately calling for help. Vox, upon seeing the child, advised, "Just ignore her. You don't have to save everyone." Before Vox could finish speaking, Enma dashed toward the girl in danger. Gritting his teeth, flames burst from his hand. "Get away from her!" The girl ducked in fright, avoiding the sight of the monster that had been drawn by the protagonist's yell. Enma gave the centipede no chance to escape and incinerated it with a blazing flame cannon, hot as the sun. But at the same time, a second wave of fire surged in, striking the centipede from another angle. The protagonist was startled by the unexpected second attack. As someone arrived beside him, Vox reminded him, "I warned you. Even if you hadn't acted, someone else would have." Unexpectedly, Himuro had arrived and also attacked the centipede with a blast of flames to save the endangered girl. Seeing the red-haired teenager in a school uniform, the protagonist recognized him immediately. As soon as the centipede was engulfed in flames, the little girl who had been saved ran off, leaving behind the two young men staring at each other. Enma knew that young man, Himuro, from the Sword of the Six Ethics. Like Enma, he stood at the pinnacle of the fire attribute. He was a pure-blooded A-rank hunter. Enma recalled the damage he had taken during Reika's attacks and realized he still wasn't strong enough to face Himuro. There was no way he could fight now. Himuro stared at him, a thoughtful look in his eyes. Seeing he hadn't been recognized, the protagonist understood why. Even though Himuro was looking straight at him, he couldn't perceive that he was the Flame Man, thanks to the scale of Shylome. The best way to escape now was to pretend to be just another civilian. He immediately began to act like a fan. "You're Himuro-san, right? I never imagined I'd get to meet you." However, Himuro responded with an unexpected question. "If I'm not mistaken, you're the Flame Man, aren't you?" The protagonist was shocked, but quickly realized how Himuro had figured it out. Himuro mentioned one of the high-ranking partners of the Hunter Association. "I'm not Rukawa with his divination attribute, but a person's personality and past are reflected in their abilities and attributes. Your flames are unmistakable. There's no doubt who you are." The protagonist couldn't believe he had been discovered, but he didn't let the surprise freeze him. Immediately, he dashed toward Himuro. "I'm sorry, but I won't go down without a fight." Seeing Enma's intent, The boy quickly raised his hands to stop him. "Wait, you're mistaken. I just wanted to talk to you, so how about we sit over there?" As he spoke, Himuro pointed to a nearby playground with a slide and swings. Hearing the young hunter's words, the protagonist was confused and surprised. After heading to the playground, Himuro handed Enma a can of soda with a smile. Though suspicious, the protagonist took the can. Cheerfully, Himuro sat beside him. "This isn't much, but consider it a thank you. I may be part of the Sword of the Six Ethics, but I'm still a student. My allowance is only 4,000 yen. Though he found it strange to be treated by a schoolboy, Enma thanked him for the drink. Changing the subject as he popped open the can, the protagonist asked if it was really okay for someone from the Sword of the Six Ethics to be chatting with a fugitive. Himuro couldn't help but laugh in the face of danger. "If Shiramime-san finds out, I'll definitely get scolded. I just have to make sure I don't get caught." Returning to the topic of the gate breach, Himuro revealed that the incident hadn't been intentional. It had simply been an unfortunate accident during an exploration. All the monsters had been eliminated, no casualties had occurred, and elderly people and children were able to return to their families safe and sound. Hearing Himuro's words, the protagonist showed visible relief. This reaction didn't go unnoticed by the security member. "Just as I thought, you're not a bad person." Taking a sip of his soda, the protagonist asked with sarcasm, "It's not that simple, is it?" With a posture of justice, Himuro suddenly stood up, raising his drink. "If you're good, then things are simple." Leaving his sudden burst of enthusiasm aside, he turned to look at Enma. "Besides, I heard about the reason you fight. You do it for Akagi Ayumi, right?" Himuro revealed that he knew all the vigilantes' targets had been bad people, some of whom had even been ignored by the guild like Minazi Reika. He sat back down to share more. "While you were fighting, the guild also began an investigation. More violations are being uncovered one after another. Even the people in the investigation room were shocked by how rotten things were." The protagonist could easily imagine the investigators' reactions. Himuro shook his head disapprovingly. "Taking someone out is definitely wrong, but I just can't see you as a bad guy." Suddenly he gave an unexpected smile. "If I keep talking like this, maybe we can become friends." Ha 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 ha. Enma never expected Himuro to have this kind of personality. He thanked him and accepted the feelings the young man expressed toward him. So as the two talked and drank their beverages, the night slowly passed by, filled with the sound of their laughter. When he finished his drink, Enma looked at the empty can. It had been a long time since he'd had a normal conversation with someone. Suddenly, Himuro stood up, and Enma looked up at him, hearing the young man say, "So, Flame Man, aren't you going to stop this pursuit?" The protagonist was surprised by the sudden request. Agitated, Himuro revealed what was happening behind the scenes. "The Hunter Association is doing everything it can to find the culprit. That's why there's no need for you to dirty your hands. I don't want to ask about your relationship with Ayumi-san, but I don't think she would want you to become a fugitive." The more Himuro spoke, the more Enma clenched the can in his hand, trembling with rage. Suddenly, he interrupted the boy's words. "Himuro, you're a good guy, which is why this is a shame." The boy looked confused by Enma's words, unable to understand what he meant. At that moment, Himuro's phone vibrated, and upon checking it, he saw he was receiving an emergency summons. Before they could finish the conversation, Himuro ran off quickly, saying goodbye. "Sorry, we'll talk later." Hearing his words, Enma wondered if there would really be a next time. Maybe that next time was closer than they imagined. When he arrived at the location indicated in the summons, Himuro was shocked. A crowd was running in desperation while the guards tried to hold them back. Himuro quickly approached an elderly couple to ask what was going on. Desperate, the woman held up her phone. "You're finally here! Please, help us! Those monsters from earlier were released into the city by the Flame Man, weren't they?" The woman showed Himuro a series of messages in which various people claimed the monsters had been released by the Flame Man. Quickly, several people surrounded Himuro, desperately begging him to capture the fugitive. Himuro was extremely confused. With everything he had discovered, that information couldn't possibly be true. Stepping back, he tried to calm the people. However, his words had the opposite effect. The crowd stared at him with dark looks and began verbally attacking him. "You're defending him. Is this what our taxes pay for? Are you favoring him because you have the same attribute?" Himuro tried to explain, tried to calm them down, but the people around him quickly began treating him as equally guilty. The young man, lacking life experience, didn't know what to do. At that moment, someone approached him and the commotion. They drew attention by saying, "Hey, here's the infamous Flame Man." With a smile on his face, the protagonist had started a live broadcast, where countless people began attacking him with words. Himuro was surprised, not understanding why he was there. Immediately, the furious crowd began questioning him. "You're the one who caused that rupture, aren't you?" The protagonist displayed a confused demeanor as he asked, "Me? Let's see, if I say it wasn't me, would you believe it? You wouldn't, right? Unexpectedly, Enma began laughing maniacally. Aren't you all being stupid? His attitude intrigued the viewers of the broadcast, who began to attack and blame him even more. Himuro, on the other hand, believed he understood what Enma was trying to do, protect him from that situation. However, his understanding couldn't have been more wrong. Enma didn't care about honor. All he wanted was power, flames. He didn't care if he was wrongly accused or anything like that. Before they could realize it, the protagonist had already extended his hand. Flames crackled and fire was launched at Himuro and the people present. The young man from the Six Ethics sword skillfully protected the very people who had been accusing him just a minute ago, allowing them to flee. He didn't stand still. With a serious expression, he cast the basic fire attribute technique, the Wall of Fire, creating a sphere around his body to shield himself from Enma's flames. With a cold gaze, Enma warned, "You and I live in completely different worlds. You can't stop me." While people in the broadcast continued to accuse him, they now began to support Himuro with even more force. The young hunter faced the protagonist, trying to calm him down. "I understand your thoughts. I also have things I need to protect." Motivated by the people supporting him from afar, Himuro extended his hand, using a well-known technique. Intermediate fire attribute combat technique, Flaming Fist. Enma didn't stay still. Cutting through the night, a fire scythe appeared in his hands. Learning technique Levi of Blaze. For Enma, this was how things were meant to be. In front of frightened citizens, Himuro stood to protect them, and in the place he believed he belonged, Enma wielded his fire scythe to intimidate them. The street grew increasingly hotter as the fire users stared each other down. Furious, the citizens who had summoned Himuro began shouting, "He's the one who caused all this! Quick, arrest him!" Surrounded by his own flames, Himuro asked if Enma had any intention of surrendering peacefully. Smiling, Enma gave his reply, "I already told you, you can't stop me." Himuro understood what he meant. There was nothing more to be said. The two locked eyes once again, and the first one moved. Himuro jumped swiftly, reaching the air above Enma. The protagonist looked up calmly as the young man shouted angrily, "If you won't surrender, then you've become my enemy." Himuro's flaming fist came down, clashing with the scarlet scythe. Their flames burst out like embers in the wind. The clash of their powerful energies created a shockwave that spread through the air, setting nearby areas ablaze and injuring citizens. After the brief exchange, Himuro landed on the ground as Enma pulled back his spear. With a sincere tone, Himuro praised him. Intense and direct, a flame anyone would admire. It's truly beautiful. Trying to silence the young man, Enma launched a new attack, forcing him to retreat under a wildfire like a volcanic eruption. Still, the young man's words didn't stop. "Tell me, why would someone with flames like that let themselves be consumed by vengeance?" With a blank expression, Enma unleashed a long stream of flame like a fiery whip and replied, "You're wrong! I gained these flames for the sake of my goals." Himuro felt the searing temperature of the attack and blocked it with his own flames. The pair of suited men appeared again. One still looked worried while the other seemed calm. His fist hit the scythe. He's ready for a rematch. Though powerful, Enma knew well the weakness of that technique. Himuro raised his fist, initiating the explosion. At that moment, Enma hurled his scythe toward him. By the time Himuro realized it, it was already too late. The weakness of the technique was obvious. If the user was too close to the point of detonation, they'd be caught in their own explosion. The Six Ethics sword was a real threat, and Enma had studied it in advance. As the spear flew toward him, countless possibilities ran through Himuro's mind. If he dodged, civilians would be hit. If he canceled the technique, he'd leave an opening for the enemy. Determination sparked in his eyes. In a brave move, he raised his hand and finalized the activation of the ability. At the last second, he redirected all the power upward, causing the explosion to erupt in the sky above the buildings. The protagonist glanced distractedly at the sky, observing the result of the boy's quick reaction. Himuro took advantage of the distraction and charged at him. His flaming fist surged forward. "You won't dodge this time." With incredible speed, the attack shot upward. Enma had dodged again, something Himuro hadn't anticipated. Still, the young man triggered the ability, using the flames around his arm as the catalyst. A powerful explosion erupted, sending Enma flying under the scorching heat of the flames. Seeing Himuro land the first hit, the civilians cheered loudly. Even after being thrown far, Enma landed safely on the street. He was panting heavily, a little worn from the fight. But Himuro was still untouched. His flames shone like the sun. He knew the enemy was exhausted from the battle against Reika. His element must have been depleted. There was no way he could fight at full strength. Confident, Himuro warned, "The outcome of this fight was decided before it even began, so it's better if you surrender." At this realization, the protagonist began laughing darkly. Aren't you being a bit too naive? I'll crush that confidence of yours with my fists and extinguish your flames with mine. That's the only possible outcome. Facing the opponent's dark gaze, Himuro made his decision. Surrounded by flames, he charged forward. His body, golden like fire, crossed the street like a comet. His flaming fist surged toward the protagonist with enough force to end the fight. Enma frowned, focusing on the fist. Still, the flaming punch found its target. With a powerful strike, the flame surged from his arm, forcing Enma's body backward. With the forceful hit, the protagonist was launched to the end of the street by the young hunter. Once again, the civilians cheered loudly. Even the calm man in a suit celebrated the end of the battle. Himuro activated the explosive power of his ability. But on the other side, Enma was still smiling. At the last moment, Himuro sensed something was off, but it was too late to retreat. A massive explosion erupted in the middle of the street, and the power of the flames surged between the buildings. Himuro was shocked by the abnormally high amount of energy. The flames rose past the buildings and up into the night sky, making it seem as though night had turned to day. An aerial drone had followed the fight the entire time and captured the moment when Enma was thrown back. As soon as the explosion happened, the flames reached the drone. The transmission signal was lost, and the people watching were left in the dark. Everywhere, those following the fight wanted to know how it had ended. However, Himuro, who still remained at the scene, realized it hadn't ended the way everyone thought. At the center of the explosion, all that remained was a crushed soda can, dented by his punch and his own explosion. In an alley, the protagonist picked up his phone and saw the result of the broadcast. Exhausted, he couldn't help but comment, "Even without the flames, his punches are extraordinary. Still, my plan worked." He smiled triumphantly as he thought about what he had done. Enma had lured Himuro into punching his stomach, using the can hidden inside his coat to absorb part of the impact. Though not completely unharmed, the injuries were far lighter than they should have been, thanks to that massive explosion. Back with the protagonist, Vox commented, "That was close. If you dealt with that guy, it would have been even more fiery." Enma told the shadowy being to shut up. Neither he nor Himuro wanted the city to be destroyed by fire. That was also why Himuro hadn't used any advanced techniques. Vox was surprised to find out the young man hadn't been fighting seriously. Enma felt grateful for having escaped. Besides, for my goal to be achieved, someone as righteous as him shouldn't be sacrificed. Vox clicked his tongue, irritated with the conclusion they had reached. After the fight, Himuro descended a staircase and sat down midway. In his mind, the man of flames still lingered. After that battle, the young man sensed potential in his opponent. He summoned a few flames in his hand and compared them with Enma's. His opponent's flames felt strange, rejecting. It made him wonder which of them would be reduced to ashes in their next encounter. Snuffing out his flames, he clenched his teeth in frustration at the outcome. At that moment, a melodic voice echoed through the alleyways. "Oh, Himuro-san, there you are. Sorry I'm late, I got held up by the publicity team." Wearing a suit, Futai Jin approached with a smile, eager to learn how everything had turned out. Seeing Futai, Himuro ran toward him excitedly. As the young man approached, Futai revealed what he had heard. Not only had monsters appeared, but also the man of flames. With a curious smile, he asked Himuro to tell him everything. Himuro recounted everything, up to the part where Enma had fled. Although he apologized for hesitating, he let his feelings pour out. "After speaking with him and facing his flames, I understood. He's not a bad person." Hearing the boy, Futi placed a hand on his shoulder. "Himuro-san, you're someone who faces things head-on. If someone like you feels that way, then the person known as the Man of Flames isn't truly a villain." Himuro thought he had convinced Futai, but the man, still holding his shoulder, smiled with his eyes closed. "If that's the case, then let's protect the villains." Himuro was confused by what Futai meant, but suddenly he felt his shoulder being gripped with tremendous force. In an instant, Futai's arm transformed. His muscles swelled several times over, as if he had trained in a gym for 100 years. The Man of Flames' crime will be eliminating Shinji Himuro. Before Himuro could dodge, that muscular arm punched him. Himuro was launched into a wall, smashing through it from the impact. Futai's body continued to transform, his muscles warping under his control. He must continue being labeled as a villain. That's why I unleashed the monsters. Without victims, it would be hard to brand him as evil. In an instant, after his muscles reshaped, Futai revealed his true identity. Cracking his neck, he blamed Himuro for his own demise. A cursed brat whose only redeeming trait is pretending to be just. Turning his back to Himuro, he believed the boy was already finished. His target now was the Man of Flames, someone he wanted to crush. Suddenly, an explosion erupted beneath Himuro. Futai turned and saw the glow of flames. Himuro's punch came crashing down on Futai's arms, which he instinctively used to block. Futai was pushed back and dragged his feet along the ground to stop himself. Staring at the boy, he growled, "You bastard!" Himuro knew exactly what Futai looked like. "You're the mastermind behind the attack on Ayumi-san. What did you do with Futai?" Hearing the question, the villain laughed. "You still don't get it? Not surprising. The popular author and intellectual of the Sword of the Six Ethics. Futai Jin's true identity is me, Kurogami Yaichi." Raising his hand, Kurogami blocked another of the boy's attacks, showing both pride in himself and disdain for Himuro. After his attack was blocked, Himuro retreated. He couldn't believe that after lecturing others, he himself had been involved with a criminal's money. "I can't face the man of flames now." Seeing the boy judging himself, Kurogami tried to reassure him. "You don't need to worry. You won't see him again. This place will be your grave." With fury surging through him, Himuro burst with the power of his flames. With a gaze full of anger, outrage, and justice, he concentrated all the flame's power in his fist, activating the flaming fist ability. Blow after blow rained down on Kurogami, who, despite being struck, only clicked his tongue in annoyance. But Himuro didn't stop. Putting all his sense of justice into every punch, he kept striking Kurogami, forcing him back with each impact. After the flurry of punches stopped, Kurogami saw the boy spinning on his heel. Before he could react, Himuro had already spun into a high kick with the top of his foot. Struck once more, Kurogami was knocked further back, deep into the alley. Even though he landed most of the blows, Himuro could feel Kurogami's overwhelming resistance. From that alone, he could sense just how powerful his enemy was. Despite his opponent's strength, Himuro had already landed numerous hits on him. Several glowing points could be seen on Kurogami's body. With 9 points active, Himuro activated a special ability, 9 Currents Explosion. In an instant, the glowing points connected to each other, and Kurogami was launched into the air as a powerful explosion erupted. Flames engulfed him completely, forming a fiery constellation in the sky. After delivering the devastating blow, Himuro felt utterly exhausted. That's when he heard a dark voice. "Let me teach you something. Flames don't work on me." When the young man looked up, he saw the villain's grim expression, stronger than ever. The protagonist, who was on the other side of the city, could still see the explosion of the 9 currents flames from afar. Frowning, he wondered if Himuro was behind it. Before he could get an answer, Vox approached with a dark tone and warned, "Hey, get ready." Confused, the protagonist asked, "Get ready for what?" The answer came when he least expected it. Waves of hatred, resentment, and terrifying emotions struck him. The evil energy fed by those feelings was unbearably heavy and hit him mercilessly. The force of fury and resentment was so intense it brought him to his knees. He immediately grabbed his phone to understand what was happening and checked the news sites. There, the top headline showed Himuro had been found in an alley. Enma frowned, wondering what had happened to Himuro, and why him of all people. It wasn't like Himuro could be defeated that easily. But upon opening the article, shock filled his eyes. There was an image showing how Himuro had been found. When he saw the boy's condition, he instantly recalled the last look in his sister's eyes. The expressions were exactly the same. Such an uncanny resemblance could only mean one thing. This was Kurogami's doing. A few minutes earlier, a group of people, civilians and men in suits, had been brought by a thug to the alley where Himuro's fight had taken place. Upon arriving, the thug swung his bat toward Kurogami and said, "Hey boss, I brought some random people." Kurogami turned around, watching those who had been dragged there so his plan could continue. Immediately, those who were better informed recognized the man involved in the Ayumin incident. Another detail traumatized them even more. Himuro's body, sprawled on the cold ground. Ignoring the fear in their eyes, Kurogami spoke. "Your job is simple. Spread the news about the useless Himuro and make it clear that the Flame Man did this." The woman who, some time ago, had accused the protagonist of releasing monsters in the city was utterly shocked. Desperate, she tried to flee. However, Kurogami vanished from where he stood and appeared right in front of her. When the woman looked up, her eyes met a dark face. Kurogami quickly grabbed her and activated a skill. Advanced Blood Attribute Combat Technique, Metamorphosis. His arm grew, muscles bulging, and the accumulated energy was transferred to the woman who, in seconds, disintegrated into a cloud of dust. Smiling maliciously, he revealed the power of his ability, allowing his body to transform freely. Having destroyed the first person who tried to resist, he warned the others, "Don't make noise, don't resist, don't question, just do what I say." Immediately upon hearing those words, everyone ran toward Himuro. They took out their phones and started taking pictures, sending messages, and spreading the news that the Flame Man had attacked Himuro. Within minutes, the story became the hottest topic on social media. A young woman, frightened, couldn't bring herself to do what was asked. Seeing her hesitation, a man grabbed her wrist. Even though she was trembling, he encouraged her. Please do it. What we need now is to protect ourselves. While Kurogami remained unconcerned, the people, driven by fear, obeyed. Not even one of his subordinates could feel at ease in that situation. Fearfully, one whispered to the others, "If we resist, the same will happen to us. Let's obey until help arrives." One of the men in suits wasn't sure if help would come, but the girl beside him smiled. "That person will definitely come here." She was talking about the strongest hunter, Shiramine. However, the man next to her had to disappoint her. He's currently inside an extremely difficult gate. It's impossible for him to come in the next few days. Unexpectedly, one of the thugs, the same one who couldn't bear the situation, attacked the suited man with his baton. The girl was extremely surprised when she saw this. "Why did you do that? We were doing what you asked." The bully just sneered. "Why? Because I was bored." The schoolgirl gritted her teeth, furious with the thug, but suddenly noticed something and looked away. The thug, annoyed by being ignored, raised his baton. "Don't ignore me!" However, he didn't notice a large fireball approaching. The girl shielded herself, and the fireball passed over them. It fell onto several thugs in the alley. The thug tried to flee when he saw the danger, but flames appeared behind him, engulfing him and giving him the same fate as the others. The owner of those flames had landed like a meteor in that alley, extending his hand to launch the fire at the villains. Seeing the presence of the flame man, one of the suited men was surprised. The young woman who had been saved by Enma, however, showed ingratitude. "It's because of you that we're in this situation." The protagonist ignored her complaints and with a dark look asked, "Where is Kurogami?" Frightened by his tone, the girl shrank back. The suited man answered for her, stammering, He said he was going to change clothes and left." The protagonist nodded at the answer. Before leaving, Enma looked at Himuro. With sorrow in his eyes, he asked those people, "Please, take good care of him." Furious, the girl shouted, "You don't have to order us. We were going to do that anyway." Quickly, Enma ran in the direction he had been told. During his run, Vox followed him, warning, Wait, listen to me, young man." But the protagonist was too furious to listen to the dark being. "He must be just ahead. Himuro is one of the strongest hunters in the country. There's no way he was defeated so easily. Besides, there were many visible marks of destruction. That was definitely caused by Kurogami Yaichi." Vox praised how good a detective Enma was. And that was precisely why he should know that this Kurogami was stronger than Himuro, whom he had barely escaped from. Even aware of his disadvantage, Enma grit his teeth. "Even knowing all this, I can't turn my back on him." With fury burning in his eyes, flames overflowed from his body. Like a rocket launching, he charged forward swiftly. Seeing the young man's determination, Vox stayed behind, uttering only a brief comment, "A madman." Meanwhile, Kurogami walked calmly with his hands in his pockets, recalling the fight. The boy Himuro had resisted more than he expected. Because of that, the trail of the flame man had been lost and his clothes were ruined. During his walk, something annoyed him even more. His chewing gum had run out. At the same time, Enma hurriedly ran through the alleys searching for Kurogami. Unaware, he approached the corner where he would finally meet the cursed man he was looking for. Enma and Kurogami arrived at the corner at the same time, and immediately their eyes met. Enma, aware that Kurogami was nearby, was already ready for a confrontation. Meanwhile, Kurogami was distracted, thinking that the flame man had left, and because of Shilom's scale, he didn't even remember his face. Enma launched the first attack, catching Kurogami off guard. The initiative advantage was with Enma. However, it was still Kurogami who attacked first. Frowning, Kurogami sighed. I just got irritated and attacked reflexively. Blame your bad luck. In the end, your body can be easily disposed of." Although Kurogami thought he had eliminated someone, the person he attacked held his fist with a hand wrapped in flames. Enma stared into Kurogami's eyes and retorted, "You mean your body, right?" Kurogami was surprised by the sudden provocation, but Enma didn't stop. Gripping Kurogami's wrist with his other hand, he concentrated all his power. Flamestorm! Preventing Kurogami from retreating by holding his fist, the protagonist created a wave of flames that swept through Kurogami's body. He shouted with all the strength of his heart, "Turn to ashes now!" All the energy the protagonist had was focused on that attack, creating a tornado of flames around Kurogami. Witnessing the attack, Vox joked, "Crazy bastard." However, the dark being was surprised by the result of Enma's strike. Kurogami extended his free hand toward the protagonist, grabbed Enma by the head and threw him to the ground, dissipating the flames in the process. With a dark look, he laughed. "I told that brat the same thing. Fire doesn't work on me." The protagonist tried to break free from Kurogami's grip, but the shapeshifter proved stronger, lifting him with one hand. He was caught off guard by Kurakami's quick move, who threw him against a wall. Suffering from the pain of the impact, Enma couldn't believe that Kurakami hadn't been affected by the intense heat. Falling to the ground, he wiped the corner of his mouth, frowning. Enma hadn't even felt any blocking ability with the water attribute. He couldn't understand how Kurakami remained standing, expressionless amidst the flames. Vox quickly approached the protagonist, instructing him not to be fooled by appearances, for they were not facing just a muscle addict. The flames continued to envelop Kurakami, who ended up revealing a clue. No matter how hot the flames are, if they don't touch me, it's useless. The protagonist was surprised to see his flames starting to disappear. Kurakami didn't mind revealing how he resisted. Covering my body with porous calcium, that alone prevents the fire from reaching me. The thin shell around Kurakami's body broke, revealing that his true body was beneath it. You know the heat-resistant tiles on space shuttles? It's exactly the same. Enma was shocked to discover that his enemy's body was covered with heat-resistant material. Not knowing who Enma was, Kurakami crossed his arms and asked which organization he belonged to. However, Kurakami remembered something he had heard at headquarters and, with a malicious look, asked, "Could you be the Flame Ogre?" Ignoring Kurakami's question, the protagonist asked Vox if the flames were still burning. The dark being confirmed yes, since Himuro's images were still spreading on the internet. Hearing that was enough for Enma. "Great, then I can still fight." Vox couldn't believe the boy's words. "Hey, did your brain fry? Fire doesn't work on him and your identity was exposed. Learn when to retreat, you brainless bastard." The protagonist corrected Vox. "Fireworks. I just need to penetrate his barrier and burn him directly." Extending his hand, Enma created the Levi of Blaze scythe. As soon as he saw the weapon, Kurakami laughed. "Oh, a scythe! Akagi Ayumi had a similar one too. You're all the same, using garbage skills." Furious, Enma attacked to make Kurakami shut up. He swung the scythe furiously, forcing Kurakami to take a step back. With fury inflaming his battle will, Enma continued advancing against the expressionless Kurakami. The bastard retreated until his back met a vending machine. Having cornered Kurakami, the protagonist clenched his fist around the scythe's handle. With a sharp strike, the vending machine was split in half. However, Kurakami was not hit by the blow. Kurakami jumped, dodging the attack while mocking, "Idiot, my legs have already been strengthened." In mid-air, he used metamorphosis on his leg, making it more muscular. Smiling, Kurakami attacked the protagonist, intending to finish him with a single blow. Seeing Kurakami approach through the air, the protagonist created several shadow portals. From them, various weapons appeared. Enma still had abilities he hadn't revealed. He had learned the crime mask skill from Minase Reika and was now putting it into practice. In mid-air, Kurakami was confused to see the firearms. Before he could react, the protagonist activated the skills. "Be turned to ashes, Kurakami." Raising his hands, the protagonist aimed the weapons at Kurakami. He was incorporating Minase Reika's ability, with a technique that changed the water attribute to fire. Firing flaming bullets with excellent penetration, he hoped to defeat Kurakami. From the barrels of the weapons, a golden glow appeared, preparing the attack. Kurakami waited for the shot, but unexpectedly, the flames from the weapons went out. The protagonist was surprised to see the bullets not firing. Vox appeared beside him, reminding him, "That's what I told you, no matter how much energy you're getting, your own body is already at its limit." Kurakami grew excited seeing the flame madman's attack fail and murmured, "Be crushed." He fell with all his weight, causing a powerful impact that cracked the ground beneath his feet and sent debris flying. Vox grew concerned for the protagonist. Meanwhile, Kurakami smiled, expecting to see him destroyed. However, his satisfied smile vanished when he couldn't find his target. Looking to the side, he saw Enma. The protagonist had managed to avoid a direct hit. Seeing Enma's disheveled state, Kurakami was even more satisfied, mocking, "So now you can only use your little flames? Does that hurt, Flame Ogre? Scared, Avenger? Or are you not going to give up?" Laughing, Kurakami once again reached out toward Enma. He grabbed him by the collar, lifting him without resistance. Even in Kurakami's hands, the protagonist remained firm, though trembling. "I won't let you, of all people, finish me." Hearing the words of defiance, Kurakami laughed. "Finish you, ha ha ha! I won't let you get away that easily. Did you know the whole world is your enemy now? You have no allies nowhere. Not a single person supports you. As long as you live as the Flame Ogre, even if no one remembers your face, society will corner you. You won't be able to eat, dress, or live anywhere. You'll suffer a rain of stones and insults. You'll stay alive but unable to do anything. You'll live in the trash among the rats. Who will finish you off won't be me, but loneliness. Or can't you abandon your revenge and live as a loser?" Kurakami smiled satisfactorily, explaining how he would torment Enma's life by letting him live. With a downcast look, the protagonist murmured, "You will regret this." Kurakami frowned, surprised. Raising his head, Enma looked deeply into Kurakami's eyes. "As long as my body moves, I will definitely corner you." Kurakami hated the look Enma gave him and wondered if he should tear it off so he would never look at anyone that way again. Two pointed fingers slowly approached Enma's face as Kurakami taunted him. Vox was surprised to see that Enma was going to be in trouble in that situation. However, Kurakami, who thought Enma had no allies, was caught off guard. A lycanthrope girl was leaping over rooftops in the dark night. Her ears moved, searching for the sound of her prey. When she found it, Ichiko jumped under the moonlight. Seeing Kurakami holding Enma, the girl stopped. She took a deep breath atop a building and with a deafening attack, howled fiercely, forcing Kurakami to cover his ears. With Kurakami protecting himself, Enma was released, falling to the ground. Both the protagonist and Vox looked toward the howl, and upon realizing who had come to help, even Vox smiled excitedly. Ichiko jumped off the building, landing agilely, and with a quick attack delivered a flying kick toward Kurakami. Unarmed, Kurakami couldn't defend against the blow and was launched like a cannonball. A large hole opened in the wall from the impact of his body. The protagonist was incredulous at what he had just witnessed. In seconds, Ichiko had saved Enma, disarmed Kurakami, and struck him with a powerful blow. Enma couldn't believe the girl was there. "Doggy?" From the corner of her eyes, Ichiko apologized. "Sorry for acting on my own, but I ended up smelling your burning life force." Ichiko still remembered Enma's words. They echoed in her mind. "I want you to live. I want you to be happy." Hiding her emotion behind her bangs, the girl recalled the protagonist's words, and it was because of them that she wouldn't let him suffer. An aura appeared around Ichiko's body as she summoned Dark Attribute, Advanced Combat Technique, Beast Syndrome. Ichiko's hearing was enhanced, as was her tail, which gained more movement. In seconds, the girl had strengthened her body, ready for combat. Her sharp eyes stared at the place where her target had disappeared. The protagonist was surprised to see Ichiko's transformation ability. Excited to see help arrive, Vox asked Enma if it was the first time he had seen a transformation ability live. Ichiko possessed the feral canine type ability. This ability imbued the user with the power of predatory dogs. While the magical energy lasted, physical abilities were enhanced, and the user could gain the physical skills and special abilities of their animal model. Vox told Enma a story. In ancient times, such transformation was called divine possession, or even werewolf. Enma, hearing Vox's comment, was confused. "What are you talking about? The awakened only appeared recently, right?" Silent, Vox realized he had said too much. He then gave a slight smile. "Who knows? Maybe this is a power that was sleeping inside humans all this time and suddenly awakened." Once again, Enma saw Vox dodge his question, even though he definitely knew things humans didn't. Frowning, the protagonist wondered what Vox was thinking. When the protagonist groaned in pain, Ichiko ran toward him, worried about his condition. Kneeling beside him, Ichiko showed her concern. "Sorry for coming without warning." The protagonist didn't let her feel guilty, thanking Ichiko for saving him. Receiving gratitude from the one who gave her a new life, Ichiko smiled like a pampered puppy. Seeing the girl wag her tail hurriedly, showing her happiness, the protagonist let her intervene. "Thanks to you, my head cleared up a bit. Will you help me?" As the two talked excitedly, a concrete block flew from the other side of the street, passing between them and hitting a wall behind them. Irritated with the girl, Kurakami appeared again, questioning. "Hey you, doggy, right? Weren't you Reika's pet girl?" Seeing Kurakami get up, Ichiko quickly took a battle stance to protect Enma. Her action gave Kurakami a new reason to mock. "Are you already wagging your tail for a new master? You're quite lively, aren't you, doggy?" Irritated, Ichiko prepared and shouted again with all her breath. However, on the other side, Kurakami had already used a countermeasure. "You'll try that trick again? With my ears covered, you won't affect me." Suddenly, Kurakami saw that the doggy was planning something. She and the flame ogre were talking in secret. Frowning, he wondered what they were planning. Suddenly, Ichiko put Enma on her shoulder, and with the help of her transformation, jumped on the building walls, climbing quickly. Kurakami looked in the direction she was running. He didn't expect the duo to have created a strategy while his ears were covered. However, strengthening his legs once again, he was confident he wouldn't lose. As soon as he used metamorphosis and jumped, Kurakami leapt above the skyscrapers, dozens of meters high. Meanwhile, Ichiko jumped from building to building. Carrying Enma on her back, the girl cried, I'm sorry." Confused, the protagonist heard why the girl was apologizing. In tears, Ichiko shouted, "I'm sorry for smelling like an animal." The protagonist quickly reassured her, "You don't smell bad. By the way, what are the Hunter Guild and the authorities doing?" The protagonist wanted to focus on something more important at the moment. While Ichiko jumped from rooftop to rooftop, the protagonist felt several jolts. He quickly decided not to talk because if he did, he would definitely bite his tongue. At that moment, Vox appeared beside him. "Should I tell you, since only you can see and hear me?" The protagonist left the task of figuring out what was happening to Vox and bet his survival on Ichiko. After advancing several blocks, Ichiko's ears began to move, having heard something approaching. Suddenly, A powerful energy strike attacked the fleeing duo, knocking down a building as if it were made of sand. The duo looked back toward the attack and saw Kurakami rapidly approaching. As soon as he knocked down the building, Kurakami jumped toward them with an evil smile. However, Ichiko wouldn't let him catch them. Using all her energy, she pushed herself to the limit, strengthening her feral traits. But after some time, Ichiko began to breathe heavily. Jumping from building to building, the girl started to tire. Slowly, her speed began to decrease until she and Enma fell heavily, rolling over a highway bridge that cut across the city, rolling for several meters before stopping. Ichiko looked weakly toward the protagonist. Trying to get up, the protagonist grew worried about the girl. She looked at her own hands, apologizing. "I'm sorry, my magical energy is running out." At that moment, Kurakami appeared above them, raising his foot while mocking, "A mere rank B thought it would escape." Extending his strengthened foot, he aimed at Enma. "Those who are part of the trash don't get far. That's been decided since ancient times." When the protagonist looked up, Kurakami was already approaching, his foot full of energy. Contrary to what Kurakami expected, Enma smiled. "We didn't go further because that was our goal. That was our destiny." When Enma managed to dodge Kurakami's powerful stomp, the blonde bastard's foot hit the stone ground. Kurakami himself was confused for missing the attack. The protagonist revealed why Kurakami missed. "You're inside a heat haze, a mirage that creates illusions using temperature differences." Looking at the ground, Kurakami was confused and surprised because the mirage wasn't everything. The asphalt beneath his feet had become soft, bubbling like lava, causing his feet to sink. The protagonist, placing his hands on the ground and heating the asphalt, explained, "After the Great Calamity, the roads were prepared for gate disasters. The asphalt is now several times thicker." The protagonist revealed his strategy to defeat Kurakami. "Even if I can't get through your ability, the heat will swallow you." Kurakami couldn't get any support because of the melted gravel, becoming stuck in the molten asphalt. Furious, he understood the Flame Ogre's objective. Suddenly, the entire bridge melted, knocking Kurakami down. As he saw himself falling into an abyss, Kurakami screamed bravely. In exchange for increased fire resistance and impact resistance, a heavy armored shell that restricted movement was created by Kurakami. Inside the sturdy sphere, he couldn't believe he had been forced into something like this. The shell created by Kurakami began to crack. With a scream of fury, he rose from the sphere that protected him. He stood up shouting, "I hate this! I hate this! I hate you, Fire Ogre! Don't think your end will be quick! I will torment you!" Suddenly, Kurakami experienced a blank in his mind. The appearance of the Fire Ogre's face was fading. His memory was being erased. However, Kurakami knew how he would find him. That woman, the little dog, she remembered the Fire Ogre's appearance, so that meant there was a way not to forget him. Thinking of calling a car, Kurakami took out his cell phone but complained, "Damn, this smells like melted concrete." At that moment, Kurakami thought of something. The smell! The memory of smells doesn't disappear. Kurakami knew that dog's sense of smell was 1,000,000 times more powerful than that of a human, and it wasn't just about senses. Immediately, Kurakami used his shape-shifting ability. His face changed shape, becoming that of a dog. Immediately, he began to inhale deeply. Even among the unpleasant odors, it was possible to distinguish different smells. Kurakami began tracking the scents he had sensed during the fight and soon found Enma's scent. With a brief use of his transformation, Kurakami managed to memorize the smell. He then analyzed the scent, realizing that the memory of it was not disappearing. This made him confident enough to mock, "Don't get cocky just because you managed to tame a little dog, Fire Ogre." Suddenly, the sound of a cell phone camera clicked on the semi-empty street. Kurakami looked back toward the people who had taken a photo of him. Seeing 3 young people, he realized that spectators were already beginning to gather. Kurakami snorted, letting the youths off lightly. "You're lucky. I'm in a good mood today, so I'll be quick in turning you into ground meat as a gift for the Fire Ogre." Kurakami strengthened his arm, causing his muscles to bulge. The youths taking photos realized the danger they were in, but there seemed to be no room for escape. However, a saving attack struck Kurakami, hitting his cell phone. Kurakami quickly turned, looking up at the sky. Below the clouds, a gigantic magic circle had been created, causing a rain of magical arrows to fall on the location where he stood. Seeing the arrows, he knew who was attacking him. Quickly, he raised his hand, creating a large shield. With the shield, Kurakami managed to protect himself from the arrows, which fell like meteors. Laughing, he looked toward the other side of the city. He was looking at a tall building a few blocks away. There, as the sun rose, a young man stood, Shiramin Yoshito, the leader of the Hunters Association. Next to Yoshito was a girl with a telescopic sight, the hunter Anya Chiyo. She gave a thumbs up to Yoshito, instructing him to keep aiming at the target with the angle he had used. With the magical bow in his hand, Yoshito thanked the girl. Suddenly, a worried pair of salaried workers approached, asking Yoshito to stop. They were concerned that the secret information about him leaving the gate would leak out. Seeing the woman worried that the public would find out they were not at the gate, Anya took out her cell phone. If we hadn't acted, all those spectators would have been slaughtered. On Anya's cell phone was a live broadcast of Kurokami, who was about to attack those youths. The secretary tried to argue, but Yoshito intervened. "I will take responsibility for this. I will not abandon the citizens suffering before my eyes." Yoshito raised his bow, pulling a new arrow. Soon he began to chant, "The first of the 3 fragments of brilliance granted to me. Light attribute, advanced combat technique, Arsensial fresco." The arrow was shot into the sky, creating a new magic circle above the city. Once again, a rain of light arrows fell on Kurokami. The arrows struck Kurokami's shield, which cracked slightly. Despite the damage to his shield, Kurokami laughed. "Shiramin, you are the reason I couldn't control the surface beyond the underworld." The crazed expression of rage covered Kurokami's smile, hating Yoshito. However, discovering that he would abandon a gate because of him excited him. "I look forward to hearing your story. I want to hear about your weakness from your own mouth." Strengthening his fist, Kurokami punched the ground beneath his feet, shaking the entire street, and those trying to film him fled. At that moment, gigantic roots emerged. They blocked the chunks of concrete thrown at the civilians, protecting them. As soon as they escaped danger, the group of civilians looked in one direction. They quickly recognized Futai Jin. Futai smiled, relieved. "I'm glad I arrived in time. Are you hurt? Let me put my plant control skills to use." Kurokami's body manipulation abilities created living plants. He was the person behind Futai, who had no weaknesses. What Kurokami did not expect was that there was a spider-shaped robot camera in that place. After filming him transform, the spider camera quickly moved away, having completed its mission. On top of the building, Yoshito ordered the secretaries to quickly dispatch hunters and staff to the location, prioritizing civilian safety. Discovering the mess that the fire ogre and Kurogami Yaichi had caused, Yoshito swore, "I will not let them escape." 9 days passed. Destroyed buildings showed how the battle scenes had turned out. With a smile on her face, a girl carried a box with sodas and snacks. She walked toward an abandoned building after seeing that she was not being followed. After entering the building, she hummed happily. Enma, how are you? Here's your canned food, pineapple and peach." The girl who arrived at the room where Enma was supposed to be ended up discovering that he had disappeared. Inside a gate, in a place far from the abandoned building, 2 friends were exploring a cave until they found a woman. The injured girl was kneeling on the ground, crying for help next to her wounded companion. One of the young men walked cheerfully, telling his friend, "I told you this was our chance since the Hunters Guild is obsessed with the fire ogre." The second young man returned the excited smile. "You're so smart, Misha." At that moment, a man appeared behind the injured woman, agreeing with them. "Yes, the guild's surveillance is very annoying." The duo of young men ended up encountering a camera, which broadcast them live. Another camera filmed Enma, who, when seen on the broadcast, caused a stir among curses and support. The protagonist snapped his fingers, releasing his flames for them. "Even with the guild so active, I can't sleep forever, so help me with my rehabilitation." As soon as they saw the fire ogre, the duo was surprised. However, the young man named Misha was not afraid. "Don't you know he's a loser who ran away from Kurogami? I'll turn him into sliced steak." The young man named Misha charged at the protagonist, releasing his wind attribute. Seeing the excited enemy, the protagonist was surprised. No matter how many of these guys are eliminated, they always keep appearing. With flames surrounding his body, the protagonist charged like a tractor. Both young men were shocked as they felt the extreme heat of Enma's flames. In an instant, the protagonist passed through them, leaving a trail of flames behind. Despite what was happening at the gates, people walked the city streets, going about their own lives. Finally, 2 weeks had passed since Enma's fight against Kurokami. The protagonist felt a little strange. He had been caught up in a huge scandal, and from all sides, countless people were looking for him. Despite this, he could walk freely because no one recognized him. Even knowing this was caused by the power Vox had given him, he still got stressed. The world seemed calm, but an unease persisted. People read the news on their cell phones, the most eye-catching being about what had happened to Himuro. Others, who were searching for the fire ogre, discovered he had reappeared in live broadcasts. According to the protagonist, Vox was upset because it seemed like he didn't want to go to a gate that day. Vox joked about Enma's laziness. "Even the greatest villain in the world can't fight the laziness of getting out of bed." Ignoring Vox's jokes, the protagonist focused on his cell phone. He had been contacted by a new client. Someone had reached out to him. Apparently, someone was selling illegal consumables that increased the rank of the awakened. Despite the cute message, the part where the girl asked him to capture such a seller to strengthen herself worried him a little. Reading the message, Vox warned that she seemed a bit suspicious. The protagonist agreed with him, as he had already been warned by Ichiko. The protagonist went straight to Ichiko, who, while drinking coffee, asked if he was curious about those illegal consumables. The protagonist joined her for breakfast, asking if she knew anything about those items. Ichiko told what she knew. They're more like a total scam. Struggling streamers fall for it and then get cheated or worse. I heard a lot about them while streaming online. I can't believe they still exist nowadays. Seeing the girl smile as she remembered her happy past days, the protagonist commented that those items seemed well known in her circle. Ichiko's nostalgia turned into sadness. Big dreams seem within reach, but when you get them, you're used and discarded. That's the world we live in. Seeing the melancholy in the girl's eyes, the protagonist waited a moment before asking if people's rank really increased by using those consumables. Ichiko laughed upon hearing the question. No way! People awaken at different ages, but once your rank is set, there's no changing it. Ichiko recalled her disillusionment, her desire to rank up, but whether rank A or rank F, everyone had to settle. The protagonist ended up looking at himself, who had gained power after a tragedy. Setting his coffee cup aside, the protagonist said goodbye. It was time to leave. Ichiko was surprised when he got up. You're leaving already? Stay in bed a little longer. The protagonist reassured her he was fine. Too much rest makes you slow. Ichiko tried to convince him to stay a bit longer in the hideout they had just found. Hey, let's eat some canned peaches. But for Enma, that place was not a rest. With a worried look, Ichiko saw Enma leave. She ended up accompanying him outside while he dressed. I never know where the next fight will happen. If I'm in the city, others might get caught in the attacks. That's why I'm in an abandoned area. The protagonist thanked Ichiko for the help, both for cleaning and for assisting him. However, he didn't believe he was in a position to stay home and relax. Thus, Ichiko saw Enma leave the building, leaving her alone. The protagonist was grateful to Ichiko. Thanks to her, his body had been healed, but he still had a lot to deal with. Fighting Kurakami made it clear he still couldn't defeat him, even at full strength. Enma had a long road ahead. He needed to build real combat experience, defeat high-rank awakened, and learn new skills. Having so many goals to achieve, the protagonist gritted his teeth, wondering if all that would be enough to catch up with Kurakami. Suddenly, Vox grabbed a loudspeaker, shouting into Enma's ear to wake him up. Startled, the protagonist ended up shouting in the middle of the street, making the people around stare at him. Seeing Enma embarrassed, Vox laughed, but then he got serious again, showing why he had scared him. That worried look on your face is your problem. The protagonist scratched his neck, sighing. I can show any expression I want. Smiling, Vox told him to smile too. You'll have more fun if you're smiling, right? Vox's suggestion surprised the protagonist and made him realize he was very tense due to recent events. Accepting the advice, he smiled. A few minutes later, the protagonist, smiling, started a live stream. While walking through the destroyed streets, reading insults, he spoke to the audience. Today I'm doing a broadcast outside the gates. Arriving at an alley, the protagonist showed some people in the distance. Today's tip brought us here. The broadcast camera, as well as the microphone, picked up the voices of two men in the alley. One of them, holding a vial, complained, "This is more expensive than I heard." However, the man in front of him smiled, not caring about the complaint. I only sell my products to those who can pay. Filming the situation, the protagonist confirmed this was exactly what had been reported by the girl named Harlequina. The protagonist formulated a plan and left his hideout, walking toward the two men. "Hello, I'm also looking for some certain consumables." Seeing the drone filming him, the seller in a flashy purple suit got furious, leaving his annoyed client aside. "A streamer? Why are you here?" Smiling, the protagonist asked jokingly, "Do you have anything for stupidity?" Those watching the broadcast ended up laughing at Enma's antics. Walking up to the man in the suit, the protagonist commented, "Eko Toyama, 24 years old, male, finance worker, rank C hunter, and seller of more than 30 illegal consumables." As the flames around the protagonist ignited, the man named Toyama got scared. But before the protagonist attacked Toyama, his client stepped in front, confronting Enma. "What do you think you're going to do? Echusan is a symbol of hope for rank F hunters." Incredulous, the protagonist repeated his words. "Hope?" The man showed his weak magic, trembling with sadness. "Rank Fs like me are the worst. They laugh at us and ridicule us. We're isolated. Other awakened don't treat us like one of them. It's not like I chose to be rank F." Irritated, the young man continued shouting at Enma. "Try switching places with me, you bastard. You'd break down in less than 3 days." Those watching the broadcast couldn't believe how desperate for rank that man was. Echu Toyama took the opportunity to defend himself. "Exactly. We are hated by normals and other awakened. That's the reality of being the lowest rank." Confidently, Echu Toyama pounded his chest. "I am the last line protecting their dignity." In response to the performance, the comments on the livestream quickly surged. "It's still illegal. What trash? Have you heard of laws? Stop justifying yourself. Work, idiot." All kinds of comments blaming the man could be seen. Enma disparaged his attitude. "You're really deceiving desperate people and acting like you're doing justice." Irritated, the young man with the candy bottle in hand opened it furiously. Refusing to be fooled, he threw several candies into his mouth. Swallowing the pills, he shouted furiously, "I won't be tricked! Let me show you my power!" The young man tried to overflow all his power and attack the protagonist. However, as soon as he approached the hot steam permeating around Enma, he couldn't advance any further. He simply fell to the ground because of the heat. Confused, the protagonist asked, "Did he seem stronger to you?" Vox, beside him, answered the protagonist, "Not a bit stronger." The protagonist remembered the tip message had said he could get stronger, but everything seemed false now. Suddenly, the protagonist felt the ground shake. The man in the purple suit smiled. "Thanks for the distraction. You allowed my ability to charge." The man had simply created a cannon with his ability. Earth element equals sign intermediate level technique, stone cannon. Vox smiled, pleased with the challenge that was much more powerful than it appeared. The protagonist drew his scythe, igniting it with the Dark Lord's flames. While preparing to fight, he noticed his power was higher than usual. What Enma didn't know was that he was being watched by a spider-shaped camera hidden in a corner of the alley. The images were being transmitted to a person who typed quickly on his keyboard while watching multiple computer screens. Leaning back in his chair, the man smiled. "Oh, now things are getting interesting." The young rank F fled desperately upon encountering the fight that was about to happen. The protagonist brandished his scythe, causing the flames to spread, warming the air around him. The stone cannon beneath Echo Toyama's feet finished charging its attack, and soon everyone watching the broadcast saw a circle of energy form, targeting its mark. Echo Toyama was already tired of ridiculous guys, but he never thought he would come across a big shot. Still, with a smile on his face, he commanded the shot. A large cannonball, full of energy, was fired, flying towards Enma. Echo Toyama laughed, satisfied to see his powerful attack. However, the flames attached to the scythe were swung. In an instant, the great attack traveling toward the protagonist was split in half, like bread cut by a sharp knife. Each half-sphere fell to the ground, exploding due to the large amount of energy they carried. Echo Toyama laughed, but soon his expression changed. Startled, he looked down and saw Enma approaching. The protagonist swung the scythe, hitting Echo Toyama before he could dodge. The protagonist frowned. He was just on his routine hunt, but his firepower was far above normal. He just didn't know that perhaps the reason for such a change could be in his broadcast. A relieved comment appeared. Some people really were saved by this vigilante. The man watching the broadcast typed quickly while commenting, "Here they come." Things like storms aren't just about villains being eliminated. There are always fights, men against women, old against young, rich against poor, logic against emotion. The man collected numerous posts about the Flame Ogre. It's only when we provoke conflicts that the network really ignites. Having gathered all the videos and broadcasts, the man published the content. Hiding a smile, he laughed, seeking an end where there was no peace. Composing himself, he looked at the computer screen. "I still have a reason to live. You have one too, don't you, Flame Ogre?" Sometime later, the protagonist received a message from the person who recommended the mission, sending him a thumbs up. He promptly informed Vox, who wondered about the random drawings in the message. The person kept sending messages. "You were stronger than expected, turning the reaction into fuel, just as expected from our Flame Ogre." The protagonist frowned, wondering how the person knew he had gotten stronger. Suddenly, new messages appeared. "Don't make a scared face. I'm not your enemy. Seriously, seriously." The protagonist looked around, asking where the person was watching him from. Suddenly, another message came. "I also saw your fight against Kurokami. Besides, that vendor was selling while trying to find me. You really saved me." The person in the messages made a proposal. "Let's join forces. The enemy of my enemy is my friend, right?" Vox became curious about the person on the other side of the message. The Shadow Lord grumbled irritably. "That person is very suspicious." Walking quickly, the protagonist shared Vox's thought. "Let's get out of here soon, this is really weird." The man who had sent messages to the protagonist was tracking a location. On the screen, there was a small marker with Ichiko's photo. It was already evening in the building where Ichiko stayed. Vox followed the protagonist back, excited that he was a true villain, hunting in places full of people. As the protagonist prepared to open the apartment door, he heard some voices inside. He quickly mentioned this to Vox, who confirmed he had heard voices. The dark being who had some power confirmed there were 2 voices inside the apartment. The protagonist asked a favor from the dark being. "Could you sneak under the door and take a peek at what's happening inside?" However, Vox revealed the truth. "I'm only a part of your soul. I can't see what you can't. However, I can sense awakened ones. The only awakened inside the room is the little dog. The other is at most a useless burden." Frowning slightly, the protagonist wondered how they had discovered his hideout. They had chosen a location where no one visited, an uninhabited zone. No one without powers should be there. He wondered what the person inside wanted. as well as why Ichiko hadn't fought that person. Suddenly a thought crossed Enma's mind, the possibility that Ichiko hadn't even been able to fight and had lost to the intruder. Thinking about that possibility drove the protagonist crazy. He quickly opened the door, gathering his flames in a sudden charge inside while shouting, "Ichiko!" However, what he saw inside shocked the protagonist. Ichiko was laughing while talking to someone. In front of her was a man with his hair tied in a low bun, having fun in her presence. The two were sitting in the living room, drinking tea, having a calm conversation. Then the man noticed Enma's arrival. The protagonist broke the calm atmosphere, drawing the dark scythe and placing it behind the man's neck while staring at him. "I hope I'm not interrupting." The protagonist stood in front of Ichiko, preventing the man from seeing her, and questioned him in the process. "Who are you? And how did you find this place?" Ichiko was surprised by the protagonist's sudden reaction. The man under the scythe raised his hands peacefully, showing he had surrendered. The protagonist stared at Ichiko, asking why she had let a stranger in. Ichiko looked confused. Then she took out her phone to show a message sent by Enma himself, which said, "It's me. A trusted ally is on the way. Treat him well." The man under the scythe ended up smiling at Ichiko, revealing his guilt. "Sorry, I was the one who sent the message." Ichiko was shocked to see that someone else had access to Enma's account. The protagonist stared at the man, asking if he had really managed to access his account. Then the man introduced himself. "The white hat hacker Arlequina, quite well known in certain circles. I tracked this place using your phone." Ichiko was shocked, as she had received many messages like that. The protagonist, frowning, scrutinized the man. "What do you want, Arlequina? If you're a stalker, we already have plenty." The man, feeling the weight of the scythe on his back, leaned forward, keeping a smile on his face. "Now it's time for the real green thread. I left like that as a gesture of good faith." The man's answer made the protagonist even more suspicious of him. The man replied, recalling a message. "If I sent a message saying you were in danger and telling you to leave, would you believe it just by seeing it on your screen?" The man's comment made the protagonist worried. Arlequina went straight to the point, pointing at the apartment. "For a professional hacker, you're basically naked. I'm not the only one who found this place. Just as I came, others will come soon." That night, the rain fell for the first time in a long while. An excited young man broke down a door leading a group of hunters. He and several others stormed the place they had found. They searched all the rooms but realized the ones they were looking for had already left. One of the boys, however, commanded the others while they overturned the furniture. "Find them! I can still feel them!" One of the invaders went to the window and, looking outside the building, called his companions. In the building opposite theirs, a person was watching them while holding a scythe. When the protagonist's eyes met the hunters, he swung the scythe, igniting it with a powerful flame that lit up the dark night. Preparing an attack, he cursed. "You just dirtied the room I just cleaned, damn it!" He took one last look at the group and said goodbye. "See you later." The flame strike traveled to the apartment, turning it into an oven, ready to roast dinner. Because of the heat, which melted everything around, the group couldn't even run. Frightened, each one fell within seconds while screaming. Leaving behind the building that had been set on fire, the protagonist headed under the rain to a school. Entering the building, Ichiko was confused and asked why they had come to a school. The protagonist was also confused, but Arlequina, who had brought them there, reassured them. "You can stay calm, no need to panic." He couldn't help but tease the two, who were definitely younger than him. "But tell me, didn't anyone ever teach you not to follow strangers back in school?" However, there was a reason the protagonist had decided to come here with Ichiko, as the man had recommended. Just as Arlequina had said, the attack on the room where the two were happened. Despite blaming himself for being discovered, the protagonist felt relieved and asked, "You wanted to make sure Ichiko escaped if I couldn't get back in time. That's why you risked taking her out of there. Am I wrong?" Arlequina smiled, dodging the true answer. "I just hate seeing girls getting hurt." He took the opportunity to brag while guiding the two along the way. "And I'm quite talented." Despite his excitement, he harbored hatred for one person. Kurakami's lackey offered me a proposal, and I can say the payment was outrageous. But when I investigated a bit, I found the bad news. Finding out that girl after girl got hurt and had their lives ruined made me tremendously angry. That's why I leaked all the information to the authorities. While explaining what had happened, Arlequina went to a fire alarm panel and pressed a button. In front of the three, instead of an alarm sounding, a door opened. Arlequina revealed the stairs to his hideout with a smile on his face. "So that's why I keep running, enjoying my life." While going down the stairs, Arlequina led the way for the other two, showing his willpower. However, the era of running ends today. Sitting in his chair, he presented his place. "Welcome, Flame Ogre, to the beginning of your counterattack." When faced with the various computers, Ichiko looked around, surprised by the secret base. In front of them, Arlequin smiled proudly at what he had built. Even Enma couldn't help but be affected by the secret base. Arlequin knew Enma wouldn't be moved by what he had built. "Come on, say something, man." He extended his hand to the protagonist. "You've been invited to my secret base. Now we're partners, right?" As if they were more than partners, brothers, the duo shook hands, sealing their brotherhood. Ichiko couldn't help but laugh, seeing how the two now treated each other. Next to her, Vox snorted, "They really are idiots." The protagonist ended up explaining to Arlequin how he became stronger by inciting conflicts to add fuel to the fire. The hacker was already very familiar with this tactic of starting small confrontations to ignite a war. He himself would cut small parts of videos and spread them on websites, resurrecting the great era of internet trolls. The protagonist faced the senior in front of him, commenting thoughtfully, "Even in old age, provoking others has become a habit." In silence, Arlequin wondered how Enma used the internet. Remembering Enma's streams, Ichiko commented, "You don't monetize your streams, do you?" The hacker was surprised by the girl's comment and asked how he made money. The protagonist revealed something that shocked the hacker. "I'm using the money I saved to send my sister to college." Arlequin scolded him. "You shouldn't waste that kind of money." But he only scolded him because Enma hadn't told him what he had already said to Ichiko. "My sister's name is Ayumi Akagi, Ayumin, who perished at the hands of Kurakami." The hacker was shocked to hear the revelation. No one until now knew the motivation for the flame monster's actions. Him being Ayumi's older brother explained everything. Arlequin bit his lips for a moment. Then his expression softened. "You're not going to lose, right?" The protagonist nodded in response, but revealed what worried him. Although he had become stronger thanks to the videos the hacker spread, he saw Kurakami's power was on another level. He trembled with anguish, knowing that even at his best, he still wouldn't be able to win. The hacker smiled, showing he would support Enma. No one can win alone. The strongest people always have subordinates. Although Enma and Ichiko gained a new ally, they were still worried. Soon they saw the hacker return to the computer, typing excitedly, "We need more allies." Ichiko approached him, asking if he knew anyone. The protagonist frowned. Even Himuro hadn't won against Kurakami. If the allies weren't extremely powerful, they would be useless. Convinced he had good contacts, the hacker introduced a guy to Enma and Ichiko. As soon as they saw the photo of the person Arlequin wanted to contact, they were shocked. That person was none other than the leader of the Hunter Association, Yoshito Shiramine. For the hacker, choosing the strongest person was the best option. He was confident he could attract Yoshito thanks to a hot tip he had. On the city streets, Yoshito's image was broadcast on large screens, announcing that he would soon receive an award. Seeing Yoshito's image, several girls melted with passion. "Look, it's Yoshito Shiramine, the prince." According to the news, Yoshito was receiving an award for his many achievements, including the recent success in the attack on the S-Class gate. In the large Tokyo stadium where the award ceremony was taking place, the packed stands showed how beloved Yoshito was by the public. Everyone praised and filmed while the event organizer announced, "Here, I express my deep respect and award you. On behalf of the citizens, I also thank you. Congratulations." Under loud applause, Yoshito bowed, receiving the certificate. The audience erupted in applause, cheers, and shouts vibrating in unison. Yoshito remained bowed, receiving congratulations from everyone. Despite this, he frowned, knowing that all of it was a sham. The award, the flashy news coverage, it was all a show. That paper he held had no value at all. Suddenly, Yoshito felt a sense of danger. A scythe fell from the sky, spinning like a shuriken. He jumped back, protecting the people on stage, watching the scythe fall and pierce the award paper. Seeing the flaming scythe, Yoshito already guessed to whom it belonged. In the next moment, someone jumped down from the stadium. The scythe's owner landed softly beside it. He walked over to the weapon and picked it up while greeting everyone. "Hello, it's a pleasure to meet you, Yoshito Shiramine. You can call me Enki." With a smile on his face, the protagonist introduced himself with the fake name he used in his streams. The crowd in the stands was shocked, apprehensive about his appearance. Quickly, some people confirmed that the Flame Madman was live on a broadcast, proving his identity. Being broadcast, the reaction spread. Shock, tension, fear. Quickly, a reporter being filmed grabbed his microphone. "It's Enki. He just appeared. Could this be a challenge for Shiramine?" Filmed in front of Yoshito, the protagonist was cursed on his own broadcast. Yoshito saw the flame ogre advancing toward him, carrying a scythe overflowing with terrifying flames. Quickly, he looked back, seeing that government agents were still nearby. Having no other choice, he conjured a sword of light. "This is the first of the 3 divine blessings I received. Light attribute, advanced combat skill, Lumière de Georges." Yoshito placed the sword in front of his body, and using the skill, it shone like a blinding sun. Because of this, Enma was forced to stop his advance and put his hand in front of his face to protect his eyes. Taking advantage of the opportunity, Yoshito ordered everyone to retreat. The protagonist was surprised to see parts of his flames being extinguished. Facing his surprise, Yoshito revealed, "Any power used with malice is swept away by this light. Your flames won't reach me." Yoshito was a bearer of 3 advanced skills symbolizing purification, protection, and healing, traits of the light attribute. The skill he was using now, as well as the rain of light arrows, were 2 of those skills. The third remained a secret. As soon as he extinguished Enma's flames, Yoshito extended the sword toward him. "If you weren't invited, I'll ask you to leave." The protagonist frowned. Malicious flames like Adele's were the worst to fight against Yoshito. Facing a real pain in the elbow, he realized it wasn't worth dealing directly with the leader of the Hunter Association. He put his hand in his pocket, and having studied Yoshito's skills, pulled out a small vial. Enma threw several small stones around him. Yoshito was shocked when he smelled those stones. They were pieces of gunpowder. The protagonist declared confidently, "Okay, your ability can suppress fire powers, but what about man-made fire? That's a different story, right?" He used a small flame to ignite the gunpowder, causing the stage to explode in a large fireball, sending a wave of heat toward the stadium audience, forcing them to take cover. Recovering from the shock, the people looked at the explosion with worried eyes, wondering what had happened to Shiramin. They tried to look toward the center of the field, but all they could see was a large curtain of smoke. Inside that curtain of smoke, Yoshito and Enma faced each other as their weapons clashed. Yoshito was furious. "What are you thinking, wanting to ruin the ceremony like this?" The protagonist smiled mischievously, replying with a question. "Oh please, this was all just a show. Your attack on the gate was a failure, wasn't it?" Yoshito was shocked to see someone reveal the hidden truth. Pushing Yoshito's sword of light aside, the protagonist warned that he was there to talk. With a serious look, he asked, "Are you going to listen to me?" Enma was extremely apprehensive, wondering if this would work. He would blame the hacker if it didn't, since a simple apology wouldn't be enough. Suddenly, Yoshito jumped back, letting Enma push him. The protagonist stared at him, wondering what he had decided to do. The leader of the Hunter Association looked at Enma for a moment before instructing him, "Let's talk somewhere else." The protagonist was surprised by Yoshito's response, but followed the proud swordsman of light, who had made a difficult decision amidst that turmoil. In front of some simple buildings, a security guard watched over a car, waiting for his employer. A conversation was happening inside one of the simple houses. One of the people there was watching the news of how Shiramin had suddenly disappeared, with the appearance of Enki. Showing the news to his guest, Enma proved that no one had been harmed. He knew the man in front of him was worried. Yoshito looked around for a while before facing Enki with a serious expression. Being stared at by the association leader, Enma couldn't help but be impressed. This celebrity had an insane, luxurious aura. Shiramin Yoshito was practically the face of the Japanese hunter world. Enma never imagined he would talk to him in person. He hurriedly pulled some drinks from a bag, serving Shiramin, who refused them. With a deep voice, he stated, "I won't even sit at the table with you, the man who did that to Hitomu." Pointing to a bookshelf, Shiramin claimed he knew they were being filmed. Among the drinks was a small spy spider. In a separate room, Ichiko and her hacker friend smiled awkwardly upon realizing they had been discovered. Rejecting Enki, Shiramin questioned what he wanted, guessing it must be something serious to see him in person. Clenching his fist, Enma decided to be direct. Enma knew they needed this man on their side. If they were against Kurokami, there was no other way but to take a gamble. Enki said something unexpected even for Shiramin. "I want to enter the ultra-high difficulty gate that you once challenged and failed. Please include me in your strategy for the Keen Palace." Without a second thought, Shiramin refused. Crossing his legs, he commented, "I don't know how you found out about the gate, but this raid has already been confidentially approved by the Hunter Federation. The deal is already closed." Enma tried to convince him, asking him to listen and warning him, "A second failure is not an option. They are sending powerful elites, the Rokusuken, right?" Confused, Shiramin asked what would happen if that were true. The protagonist continued the explanation. "There are 4 of them, excluding you and Himuro. Probably only 2 would be sent to avoid attention. But if that happens, the Federation will be shut down." Confused, Shiramin slightly frowned to question what Enki meant. Being direct and extending a cell phone with a video to Shiramin, the protagonist stated, "There is a traitor among the Rokusuken." Watching what was happening in the other room, the hacker wondered what Shiramin would do. Praying, Ichiko begged for Enma to return safely, but the hacker reassured her, "He will be fine. This secret footage exists thanks to your efforts, right?" Upon seeing the footage, Shiramin was shocked. Just as the images showed, Enki stated, "The one behind all of this is someone you know. Kurokami Yaichi." Irritated, Shiramin asked what proof he had that the footage was real. Faced with the question, Enki returned another. "Would I invade the ceremony just to tell a lie that would be immediately exposed?" Hanging his head, he added, "Besides, Kurokami is the one who attacked Himuro too." Shiramin gritted his teeth, clicking his tongue irritably. Enma tried to warn him before it was too late. "I don't know why he is still in the Federation, but he clearly planned something. If you take him to the raid, he might betray you. But if we stop him before the mission..." Shiramin interrupted Enki's words, revealing that Kurakami also knew that he had failed the raid. So there was a possibility that if he disclosed that they held the ceremony without completing the dungeon, it would be like allowing a beast to run free. Showing the truth to Shiramin, the protagonist stated, "That's why you and I have to go. We need to clear the gate together." With 3 Rokusuken members present, Kurakami won't act carelessly. Faced with the only option he had left, Shiramin bit his lips, wondering what he would do. Shiramin knew that something was wrong. He didn't believe that Himuro would lose so brutally against someone with the same fire attribute. More than anything, the destructive patterns were familiar. They were the same as the scene where Ayumi Akagi had been attacked. Shiramin tried to defend Fuwasen, as he had always been very close to him, but gave up. With sadness and disappointment on his face, Shiramin wondered why this had happened. The protagonist remained silent while Shiramin fell apart without solace. Faced with this, the Federation leader asked, "Who are you, really? Why go so far?" Enma answered, stating that he wanted to avenge Ayumi Akagi. Confused, Shiramin asked what he was, if a fan or something similar. Vox tried to stop him, but Enma's finger went to his contact lens. As he removed the lens, he stated, as his blurred image disappeared, "You might not believe me." Staring at Enma for a while, Shiramin was left speechless. Pointing to his own face, Enma stated that he wouldn't recognize him even if he revealed his own face. But muttering for a second, Shiramin Yoshido jumped on top of Enma with a look of concern. "You're Ayumi's older brother." Confused, the protagonist asked if Shiramin knew him. Responding affirmatively, Shiramin reminded Enma that Ayumi had done the school's skill tests when she was 10 years old. Ayumi had awakened at 6, but since skills were still a mystery, the government hadn't started testing children until 4 years later. Soon, young people began to test their skills, discovering their attributes, ranks, and powers. It was also at this time that Enma's lack of skills was confirmed. Shiramin had been impressed by Ayumi's light attribute. The purity of her attribute could rival his own. However, that wasn't all that Shiramin remembered. That innocent smile and the sweet voice like a bell, a heart filled with love and hope. Enma began to get a little confused about how much Shiramin knew his sister. Shiramin screamed at the top of his lungs, "I secretly wished she would become a deity of the hunter world. I had high hopes for her." Hiding his tears, Shiramin blamed himself for not even being able to protect her. Watching the Federation leader, Enma could tell that he was serious. However, such honesty was a bit unsettling. Even Ichiko and the hacker felt there was an exaggerated fanaticism. Remembering how dangerous it was for powerful children at that time, Shiramin revealed that they had even falsified Ayumi's record to make her seem weak so that the government wouldn't go after her. Faced with so many statements from Shiramin, wanting to prove that he had tried to help Ayumi, Enma stopped him. "Whatever your reasons, I thank you for taking care of my sister." Clearing his throat, Shiramin apologized for being a bit emotional. Enma stated that he wasn't asking for Shiramin's blind trust, but asked him to consider challenging the gate with him next time. Agreeing, Shiramin asked for some time to decide. The hacker was quite frustrated to see that things would be postponed, but Ichiko reassured him. With a smile, she stated, "I'm sure Shiramin-san will ally with us." On the way home, Shiramin remembered Enki, Enma's eyes. There were no lies in them. With Kurakami as an enemy, Shiramin felt that he really wanted to fight alongside Enma. However, there was still one undeniable truth. Enma had eliminated many people. Frustrated, Shiramin wondered what to do. At that moment, Shiramin's phone began to ring. Shocked, he found out news about Himuro's condition. When he arrived at the hospital, a person stated that they were desperate with his disappearance at the ceremony. However, Shiramin didn't want to know about that. He wanted to know how Himuro was. The man accompanying him, with a worried look, guided him to the hospital bed, stating, "He has overcome the great crisis, but his condition is still critical." Upon seeing the young man in the hospital bed, Shiramin was shocked. Himuro's wounds were severe and exposed, as if his entire body had been purified from the inside. Even Shiramin's skills could do nothing to save the boy, so he wondered what could have saved Himuro. Going to the side of the bed, Shiramin held Himuro's hand. Feeling a warmth in his hand, Himuro began to wake up and murmured, "Shiramin-san?" Shiramin and the security guard were shocked to hear Himuro wake up. Hurriedly, Shiramin asked Himuro to talk to him. With a smile upon seeing him wake up, Shiramin asked if he needed anything, asking him to say anything he wanted. Gathering his strength, the young man with a weakened look asked, "Please give a message to my parents. Tell them I'm going home, that they shouldn't worry." Enthusiastically, Shiramin promised. However, Himuro wanted to ask one more thing. Bowing his head, Shiramin approached so that the young man could whisper to him. Unexpectedly, Shiramin heard the young man talk about Enki. Himuro remembered what had happened and revealed to the captain, "We drank juice together. I think we became friends. But I did something terrible to him." With a look of sadness, the young man continued, "He is not the enemy. Please lend him your strength." Himuro asked Shiramin for one more thing, which he listened to carefully. Holding the young man's hand, Shiramin swore, letting him go back to sleep. 2 days later, a twist had occurred in the city. Enma never imagined that he would end up forming a team with the best hunter, Shiramin Yoshito. Beside him, Enma headed to an underground train station. The most frightening thing was that everything had turned out just as Kuruido had planned. Still, an awkward silence fell between the two. Enma had nothing to say to Shiramin. While Enma wondered how to break the heavy silence, Shiramin was the one who spoke first. "I'm sorry." The sudden apology surprised him. Shiramin apologized properly. "About Himuro, I wrongly assumed you were the culprit. I said a lot of harsh things." Worried, Enma asked Shiramin if Himuro would survive. Shiramin revealed that his family's affiliated hospital was giving Himuro the best possible treatment and that he also had a strong will to live. However, Shiramin still stated, even a Kurokami cannot easily escape. From that power, we were lucky. Enma was excited to discover that Himuro would be fine. Since Shiramin had apologized, Enma did the same. "I caused a lot of problems for the Federation, didn't I?" "Sorry." Shiramin trembled with anger upon hearing the apology and pointed at him irritably. "Do you think just apologizing will cover what you did?" "I'm going to make you face the judges." Just from the words, both Shiramin and Enma, who had arrived at the raid entrance gate, knew that such matters could only be dealt with after they completed the mission. The Keen Palace was an ancient fortress, surrounded by a bamboo forest and dense spiritual energy. The duo advanced through the forest, facing various spiritual monsters with their spear and light sword attacks. However, they soon encountered a powerful opponent, a blue dragon. From the mouth of that dragon, a sticky liquid like poison dripped, which melted the ground upon touching it. Roaring, the dragon opened its mouth, gathering a large amount of that saliva into a sphere, which it spat toward Shiramin. Faced with the attack, he murmured, "Lumière de Georges." The light sword in Shiramin's hand shone intensely, like a sun in the shape of a blade. Pointing the sword towards the poisonous breath, Shiramin created a light barrier that protected him from the acidic saliva. Immediately he advanced, counter-attacking the dragon and eliminating it with cuts of light. Slowly, the dragon's head began to fall apart. When it fell to the ground, a loud bang occurred, but nothing hurt Shiramin, who was being watched by Enma. Shiramin was so fast that Enma could barely keep up, panting. He was carefully able to analyze what the best hunter was. Feeling that something was wrong, Shiramin looked to the side. Enma, who was fighting a wolf, did not see a night bat dive toward him. Shiramin quickly advanced, shouting, "Watch out!" Hitting the bat with the light sword, he saved Enma from the attack. When the bat fell to the ground, Enma thanked Shiramin for saving him. They realized that rushing the hunt was being detrimental. Shiramin looked at the ground, seeing the various monsters they had eliminated. Returning to the path, he warned, "Let's both stay alert. Let's rest for a bit." Shiramin, warning about the heat, passed water to Enma. As he took it to drink, the protagonist thanked him. Discovering that Shiramin was gathering information, Enma asked how he managed to handle the heat since he wasn't drinking water. Shiramin revealed that it was thanks to the light sword Lumière de Georges. It prevented excess heat. Surprised, Enma asked, "Isn't that the ability that erases malicious powers?" Shiramin confirmed his doubt. Annulling the gate's effects was not something normal. Shiramin revealed that he believed the gate had been created by those who emerged in the heavens, created by malice, and that's why his ability reacted that way. While the protagonist was thinking about surprising things, Vox appeared beside him. "Man, you're like a bug in the system." What Shiramin had told Enma made the protagonist believe that as long as Shiramin possessed mana, he would be untouchable. That's why he asked Shiramin what strategy he was thinking of using, since they would face a monster that even he hadn't been able to defeat. Shiramin didn't want to tell him before, but he thought he could reveal it now. The boss here is not just a monster, and he's also not one of those celestial beings we saw emerge in the sky. When Shiramin revealed what they were going to face, Vox was unexpectedly left speechless. Such a being was called a dark being, a being who claimed to have come from the other world. Hearing Shiramin state everything with certainty, Enma and Vox were left speechless together. Curious, Enma questioned Vox if there were others like him. Vox hurriedly explained that he was part of a race, so obviously there were more. However, Vox didn't know if beings like him could control portals. Even he was shocked by the news. Unexpectedly, Vox showed a smile, waiting for despair, because he believed that if humans were facing a being like him, they wouldn't be able to win, as they were on different levels of existence. Shiramin stated he didn't care if Enma didn't believe him. A monster talking was already suspicious, but saying it came from another world was even worse. With all his words, Shiramin ranted, trying to make Enma believe him. "This is the truth." Enma quickly reassured him, stating he believed him. Sighing with relief, Shiramin thanked him, as it meant a lot to him. Looking at his own sword, Shiramin revealed that his power didn't work against that being. That power, so-called unbeatable. With a serious look, Shiramin revealed why they had lied, but now he was relieved to finally be able to tell the truth to someone. Curious, the protagonist asked, But if your power doesn't work, we probably won't have a chance to win, right? However, Shiramin stated he thought it was just a compatibility problem. Light is an attribute that can purify. You can remove stains from a white shirt, but you can't turn a black shirt into a white shirt. Does that make sense? Faced with Shiramin's analogy, the protagonist fell silent. Vox even rolled his eyes, complaining about how Shiramin explained things, getting straight to the point. Shiramin stated he thought someone like Enma, or a Rakusuken, could be able to fight against malicious forces. Surprised that Shiramin still had doubts about this, Enma asked if he hadn't tested it. However, Shiramin denied it, stating that he only had assumptions. Since they couldn't hide the gate forever, he stated that they would have to do their best. Seeing Shiramin being so honest, the protagonist shrugged, asking him to just say yes, and not remain scared. With a heavy look, Shiramin stated he was tired of lies. I'm also tired of those who need proof to act. People like that won't be able to face something unknown like what we're going to face. Worried, Shiramin asked if Enma wanted to give up. With a firm look, Shiramin warned, there's no turning back now. Vox appeared behind the protagonist, mocking. What he's saying is that if you get scared, he'll finish you off so the situation remains a secret. Apologizing for sounding harsh, Shiramin stated he just wanted to ensure everyone's protection, even if he had to get his own hands dirty. Extending his hand, Shiramin made it shine, removing all the impurities present in it. Seeing how Shiramin was the type who wanted to cleanse society, Enma revealed that he thought he was an idealist, but that he had shown how the best hunters live to make their names. Drinking the water to hydrate, he stated, I've already come so far. I will drink the rest of this juice at least. According to Enma's words, Shiramin suddenly remembered something that Himuro had said. He said you became friends after you drank juice together. Sighing, the protagonist commented softly, I wish life were as simple as that. Getting up and setting the water bottle on fire, he stated with confidence. The break is over. With a smile, he invited, shall we go now, friends? Shiramin returned the greeting. Let's go, friend. Side by side, carrying a scythe and a sword, the duo headed for the fortress. The Hunters' Federation was receiving a visitor. Ichiko was on one of the highest floors with a worried look. In the same room as her was Kanya Chio, who was on her phone ignoring her. Ichiko never imagined she would be with her, one of the association's 6 rings. Before leaving with Shiramin, Enma had met with Ichiko and the hacker, stating he wanted the two of them to be safe while he was away. Although keeping them safe in the Federation meant they would be closer to Kurokami, which was dangerous. The hacker encouraged Enma to let Ichiko go to the association, reminding him that leaving her with someone who couldn't protect her would be even more dangerous. In the end, both Enma and the girl agreed. The protagonist figured it would be better to stay safe and asked if Ichiko could hide somewhere, but Ichiko had made a decision. I'm going to the Federation. I don't want to just sit around being protected. I'm going to investigate Fuhujin and Kurokami. She turned to the hacker, yelling, You can count on me, old man. Remembering how he had been evading and hiding for years, the hacker said he would hide, also because the outside world had always been like pollution to him. Figuring out what needed to be done, the hacker asked Enma if he didn't need to prepare for the raid. Agreeing with the plan the duo would follow, Enma asked them not to overdo it. Ichiko nodded excitedly, as did the hacker. Since there were cameras in the room, Ichiko already imagined they would send someone to watch her. However, she wanted to get information, to be useful in some way. Ichiko had heard Shiramin say that Chio was an ally, but the current Federation didn't know who the real enemy was, so she wondered whose side the young woman was really on. At all times, Ichiko watched the girl on her phone. It was when she opened her mouth that Chio was suddenly startled, throwing her cell phone up in the air. Ichiko quickly apologized to the girl, who stammered shyly to the point of dropping her cell phone on the floor. To apologize, Ichiko bent down to pick up the phone. This is when she discovered that Chio was playing online mahjong. Excitedly, she counted the girl's tiles. Tanyao! Sanshoku! That's 1,200 points! Recovering her cell phone, Chio trembled as she looked at her own tiles. Because Ichiko was so accurate, it was as if she were reading her mind and her moves. Chio hurriedly asked how Ichiko was so good, and she saw her pick up her own cell phone. Shyly, Ichiko stated that there was always a lot of free time while planning things. Sighing, Chio agreed when they talked about work. Ichiko revealed that she used to play games with those who watched her streams, impressing the hunter from the Federation. That's when Chio challenged her. I want another game. I won't lose this time! Smiling, Ichiko accepted so as not to create suspicion. While playing with Chio, she reminded herself, focus and find out who is really a friend and who is trying to deceive us. At the same time, in the security room, a young IT technician watched the room's cameras while sighing. To think that we would really end up protecting someone connected to Minase Reika and the Flame Maniac. Behind him was Kurokami in his disguise, reminding the young man, she is a key witness. Remembering how Shiramin had strangely assigned one of the 6 rings to protect the girl, he asked the young man, where is Shiramin? Smiling awkwardly, the young technician revealed that Shiramin had gone to a family gathering, commenting, it must be difficult to be part of a noble family. family. Kurakami smiled with the young man, commenting, "I see, but how strange for family things to come up right now, isn't it? What a strange feeling. Something smells fishy." With a suspicious look, he stared at the cameras. At the same time, Shiramin and Enma arrived at the entrance to the ancient fortress. Following the path of broken stones, the protagonist asked if they were in the right place. Shiramin answered affirmatively, stating that at the end of the gates there was a guardian, and until that guardian was defeated, the gate would not disappear. Beside Enma, Vox crossed his arms, observing the place. There were blue flames everywhere, and Vox refused to believe that he recognized them. Since they didn't have much time, Shiramin decided to go ahead, but Enma told him to wait, reminding him that his attacks didn't work there. Having allowed Kurakami to discover that they failed in the attack on the gate last time, Shiramin knew that if he disappeared for too long, he would realize what was happening, so they needed to complete the mission before sabotage or threats arose. Confidently, Shiramin asked Enma not to worry. "I won't make it easy this time. Use your eyes to find the key for us to conquer this gate." As soon as Shiramin entered the fortress premises, the sound of beasts appeared. Spiritual fire wolves fiercely advanced upon seeing him. On top of a stone, a woman stretched. "Oh, you again? You sure come here often." Yawning, the woman with short blue hair and golden eyes asked if he was bored or something. Upon seeing the gate guardian, Enma was surprised. Shiramin responded to the guardian by creating a bow of light, causing a rain of arrows to appear. As the arrows fell towards her, the guardian yawned once more, complaining, "Dodging is so boring." With an explosion of light, the arrows created by Shiramin fell upon her, destroying the stone where she was sitting. Immediately after, he chanted, "O rainbow of light that dwells within me." A single giant arrow of light appeared on Shiramin's bow. The light arrow tore through the air, igniting it, advancing towards the place where the explosions happened. But an explosion happened, launching everything into the heavens. However, muttering, the guardian dispersed all the light attacks, appearing in the middle of the mist. With a smile, the fox guardian yelled, "You idiot!" Extending her hand, she conjured a mist of blue fire that attacked Shiramin, who quickly conjured a magic circle shield. Enma was shocked and worried about Shiramin, as his attacks really weren't working. Beside Enma, Vox unexpectedly began to smile, muttering, "Heh, really, it's you. What are you doing here?" The guardian was surprised by someone suddenly talking to her, and looking in Vox's direction, she screamed in shock, pointing at him. Confused, Shiramin looked back. Mockingly, Vox spoke directly to her. "Long time no see, sloth." Furious, the guardian corrected him. "I am Excedia, but if you know my name, then you must be the real one." Excedia was afraid to see Vox in person. You bastard! You should have been eliminated a long time ago." Vox, the spirit of the word. Enma was surprised about how Vox was called by the guardian. However, he laughed, satisfied at being recognized. Shocked, Enma looked at Vox, asking about his name. Satisfied, Vox murmured about how his name reminded him of the past. Changing the subject, the protagonist hurriedly asked Vox if he was a partner of Sloth, Excedia, or whatever her name was. Furious, Excedia blustered, "You pathetic loser. You were once the king of the dark beings, then you disappeared, and now I'm stuck doing this crap." Surprised, yet excited, the protagonist asked Vox if she was telling the truth about him being a king. Despite clicking his tongue, Vox smiled as he reprimanded her. "You've already started revealing my secrets?" This showed the surprised Enma that Excedia was telling the truth. Confused, Shiramin asked what was happening, who the guardian was talking to. At the same time, Enma remembered the first time he met Vox. At that time, he hadn't said anything about himself. Enma didn't know who he really was. Frowning at that moment, Enma questioned, asking Vox to explain himself and say what he was. Clicking his tongue irritably, Vox decided to tell him, "We are no different from you humans. In our world, angels also appeared, but without the emergence of gates. They swept us away, eliminating each one of us, and I was the only one who managed to survive." Hanging his head, Vox added, "At least that's what I thought." Excedia stared at Vox with a furrowed brow until, observing him closely, she noticed something. Around him there was no water, oil, tears, nor anything she recognized, just a dry husk. Furious, Excedia stomped on the ground, creating a magic circle of blue fire, while blustering, "Dry branch. Spot acting arrogantly and powerfully. You are just a remnant of a fallen race." Magic circles began to appear all over the fortress courtyard, like flowers. Furious, Excedia blustered, "Perish forever!" The blue fire enveloped Vox, as well as Enma, who was beside him, like a tornado that rose to the heavens. From a distance, Shiramin stared at the powerful attack. Surprised, he realized that at no point had she been fighting him seriously. Shiramin was about to run to help Enma when Excedia also attacked him, launching a blue fireball at his back. Shiramin quickly turned, extending his sword, chanting, "Lumière de Georges!" The tip of the sword hit the fireball and created a shield of light around him. Shiramin was already running out of mana, and while worrying about defending himself, ended up questioning himself, "Am I that weak?" Worried, Shiramin pleaded for someone to appear, for someone to protect the country, to protect everyone. It was at this moment that something whispered in Shiramin's ear. Great chance. A shadow appeared on the battlefield, swallowing the fire that attacked the young light conjurer. Walking between the fire and shadows, a voice answered Shiramin. It's your job to protect everyone, Shiramin-san. Surprised, Shiramin looked at the swirling flames. With a deep voice, Enma reminded him, everyone is counting on you. Around Enma, Exedia's flames had extinguished, and in their place, an extremely dark flame had appeared, with a sphere of shadows above him. Exedia was shocked to see the ranking of those flames, because for her, there was no way a human could summon flames of that level. Shiramin, worried, shouted at Enma, "Are you okay? What is this power?" Before answering Shiramin, Enma wanted to apologize. You probably don't know since phones don't work here, but I've been live streaming everything until now. Hidden behind a rock was a drone. In Enma's hand, a special cell phone showed that they were live. Shiramin was shocked by Enma's words and by the customized cell phone in his hand. Enma revealed the reason for doing such a thing. You kept this gate hidden and fought alone so that people wouldn't panic. But this was also convenient for politicians and rich people. They threw all the blame and pain on you and gave you orders from safe places. I remember what a friend had said. Old people like that. I can't stand them. The owner of such words, the hacker hiding behind the broadcast, immediately activated a button. On screens across all cities, the live broadcast appeared. People were surprised when they received the notification that Enki's broadcast was active. From the moment Enma had questioned Shiramin about the dungeon's failure, it was shown on the broadcast, as well as the moment Shiramin revealed that his powers didn't work at the gate, and the reason why he couldn't reveal the truth to the people. Upon seeing this part of the broadcast, the rich and politicians laughed, as they would take advantage of it to gain popularity. But soon Shiramin's desire to protect everyone was shown. In the broadcast's comments, countless people cursed Shiramin. The insults and curses spread to social media. Soon the news about the failure of the Keen Palace Gate was exposed, as well as the great scandal and the relationship between Enki and Shiramin. Around Enma, the shadowy flames were fed. Vox at every moment felt despair spread, grow in the city, and in the man in front of them. With that amount of despair, the dark being saw an opportunity to stabilize his form. Vox's body changed. His cadaverous appearance was healed, and large gray feathered wings appeared on his back. Breathing the air of real life for the first time in a long time, he couldn't ask for anything better. Shiramin stared surprised at the being that appeared. Curious, Enma asked Vox if that was his true form. Upon seeing that form of Vox, those shadowy flames, Exedia was tremendously scared. The dark being, with a charming gray smile, commanded the sphere of shadowy flames, responding, "Only for tonight. This will be my true self." With a pressure under her head, Exedia muttered repeatedly, "Shut up, shut up, shut up!" The fury within her overflowed with a howl, and a wolf of flames appeared. The wolf's head charged at Vox, while Exedia roared, "You loser! Burn in agony." Faced with the attack, Vox replied, "As long as I am alive, I will not lose, Sloth." With a threatening look, Vox ordered, "Kneel." The flaming wolf head that charged at him disintegrated in midair before reaching him. Faced with the shadowy flames, the blue flames encountered a great wall. Exedia, even against her will, obeyed Vox's orders, kneeling before him. The king's power had been used against her. Raising his hand, Vox created a sphere of shadowy flames. Exedia despaired as the shadows approached. Vox's attack exploded, consuming all existence around him. Even Enma was left speechless before Vox's power. Shiramin had never seen anything so powerful in his life. Seeing Enma's surprise, Vox approached. "What's wrong, partner? This is what you wanted, right?" Looking away, the protagonist confirmed, stammering. Vox found Enma's reaction strange, but soon smiled. "Hey, why are you so stiff? We're partners, don't you remember?" The protagonist laughed back at Vox, agreeing, "Yes, that was pretty cool, partner." In the fortress courtyard, Exedia lay on the ground, at the center of the explosion. Relieved, Shiramin commented upon seeing her, "We won! Everyone is safe now." Leaving the guardian behind, Shiramin walked towards Enma and the being, who were laughing animatedly. With a smile on his face, he called out to Enma, but a sneak attack wiped the smile from his face as it hit him from behind. The blade pierced Shiramin, who in his pain looked back, only to see Kurokami's smile. If you enjoyed today's recap and want more manhwa content, subscribe to the channel. We're starting this journey now, and I hope that together we can strengthen this new community. So go ahead and like the video, comment for future parts, and share it with your friends. Thank you so much for joining us, and until next time.